Okay, very good. Good evening. Call the meeting to order. Will everyone rise and join the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance. Let the record show that we are all in attendance and Julene is with us virtually. So hello, Julene, our new
Hi,
tech stuff.
you.
All right. Vicki, are you? Okay, all right. Is there any correspondence from the board or committees?
Yeah,
Beth, Mark?
oh yeah, I missed the last board meeting, but I did watch it virtually. And I just want to make known that I'm a little concerned from staff that we have a bunch of corrections we had to do in on this agenda tonight. These corrections or mistakes have been ongoing monthly for the last several years. We've asked staff for a book of policies and procedures to correct these mistakes, if these mistakes continue. So I just want to make it known for the record that we need to not have so many mistakes for the board on a monthly basis. Because that's very confusing when you have to come back to meetings and have to look at 3-4 different agendas and changes, and that should not be happening. We've had this new staff on board now for several years. And we should be double checking, triple checking our work before it comes to the board and sent out. And then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Any other comments? Trustee Lancaster.
Thank you. Just 2 comments. First one being, I received some correspondence. They got all sent to all of us, but then I did have exchanged a separate email with the individual Lynn with the Kimberly Area Lacrosse Association. I did direct her back to staff, but I don't know who she talked to, and it was right before the meeting, so I only exchanged 1 email with her, but she expressed that she had tried to contact staff and did not get a very good reception from staff. So I know there's always 2 sides to every story, but just a reminder, we need to make sure we're treating all the organizations fairly.
Okay.
And then my second thing, very glad to see these meetings are being recorded. Very happy to see the YouTube channel and all that set up. Suggestion for staff would be to look at adding an additional column to the agenda in minutes page on the village website, where you can have a column for the agendas, packet, minutes, and then you can put the YouTube video right with it. Keeps everything, that can still link off the YouTube channel, but that keeps everything laid together and easy for the community to find and follow. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, moving on, we have the minutes from the April 23rd meeting. What is your pleasure? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the April 23rd, 2024 meeting minutes. Yeah, sorry, that was just a week ago. I'm sorry, I confused the 2 of them. So anyway, motion to approve the April 23rd, 2024 meeting minutes as printed and circulated.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Second by trustee Hanford. All in favor, vote ballot.
Aye.
You got it. Confirm. There you go. Let the record show the motion's carried unanimously. Public comments. We have 4 people signed up. Adam, would you like to come on up?
Good afternoon, everybody. Adam Whitcomb, 620 Arlington Street, Appleton. President Blackmere, trustee, obviously we know why I'm here. Been fighting this dirt pile for some time. And again, last year we had gotten the approval, or he had gotten approval to do it. They said that last meeting that he had successfully provided or did the operations on site without any complaint, but I think we all know that he didn't even do a single day of shredding after the approval from last year's meeting. That said, he did start pulverizing before approval this year. And then lied on his thing, and he did it in high winds. So even if he did it, like, he didn't even abide by the rules that were set in place from the last meeting. And I had brought it up at the last board meeting last week, or the planning and zoning committee, that I had learned that, I know this isn't the town of Buchanan, but the Buffalo's Farm on Highway 55 was purchased by the Capona School
Adam.
District.
I have to stop you. We're not gonna talk about time again.
Well,
So just,
I'm saying that the potential for that site to be moved to the town of Village of Harrison is extremely high, to the fact that that will not happen next to a school. They're
okay,
building a school there. So Mr. Frederickson's long-term goals, as he had stated last year's meetings, I think are a little more he's being untruthful of the intent of the site. And I was extremely happy as last week as the Lair family themselves, who currently own the site where he's pressing on in Harrison or in Buchanan, actually showed up here with an attorney to fight against this permit. And so I want to say also for the record that every single person, including the lady that lived across the street next to the old Van Tree Farm, all the people in the apartment buildings, myself included, and all the people that have living or working around that area have been 100% against this operation. And the only people Mr. Frederickson's been able to bring is people that are either on his payroll or collecting a check from him. And Mr. Gale has proved that he's willing to lie, whatever it takes. And I just think we've all been quite truthful here and
stop you right there. We're not gonna do personal attacks tonight.
well, it's not a personal attack. I mean, outright lies to this board members, and that should be, I mean, you have video recording of his dirt, and he completely lied about their testing and that site and the machine, and it's like, and I just think that the people that are living in direct area to this work site are the ones that firmly against it, and I just think that whether you guys that or not.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hopefully that the attorneys did good for it.
Okay. And we have, Brett, did you want to wait until we come to that portion?
Yes, Brett's not here yet, so yeah, I'm Julie.
Okay,
Allison.
did you want to speak at the public?
No, Brett's,
Or do you want to wait when it comes, when I get to the pickleball stuff?
yeah,
Okay. And Matt Girl,
Matt Gill?
Matt. Oh, okay, I can't read your writing. You want to wait until we get? to
I'll
the
wait,
portion?
I'll wait for the item. Thank you.
Okay, and then. Is it Rob Bellin?
Yeah, I'll wait for that item too.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just stand in from that, so you don't have to hear it twice.
Okay. All right. All right, then that, I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Everybody good? All right, then we are moving on. All right, my favorite part of the whole meeting, Mr. Wisnet. Could you step forward, please? Shirley, did you bring your camera? Shirley's better half here, that, what up, Jeff's better half, Shirley. This up just so everybody knows that people have this to their homework.
we're gonna peel it off with a button.
All right, Jeff. From the village of Harrison, talking me through whereas the village of Harrison can trace its origins back more than 100 years. Whereas the village staff has served the public faithfully during that time, and whereas it is rare for people to stay with an employer for a long period of time. We like it. And whereas the duties of staff in the Department of Public Works are vital, functioning, and viability of the community, and whereas it takes a special skill and attitude, especially to do my help, to discharge the duties in public works, and whereas Jeff Wisnet has faithfully served the community as a member of Public Works since 1992. Therefore, on behalf of the village board of the village of Harrison, issue this proclamation of commendation and recognition of service provided by Jeff Wisnet by serving the Department of Public Works for the village of Harrison. The village board of the village of Harrison encourages all citizens of this great community to show recognition and support to Jeff and appreciation for his service to residents. By order of the village board of the village of Harrison, this 30th day of April, 2024.
Thank you.
There's a story behind this. Who wants to do the honors of this story? Chad?
Sure, so it's basically like retiring the jersey, but we're retiring the safety provider that it doesn't meet OSHA requirements anymore, so it's a state. But we felt that you would want to take it home, but as you said, when I asked you for it, it was like queuing it up. And we've been doing it for 31 years. So we've gotten a lot of money out of that, so we thank you, but we also appreciate the dedication to the members.
Thank you. I fell down a lot too. I also have, 2 words. I looked at the agenda. Being 4 pages long. I have 2 words. Thank you. That I'm gonna provide, yeah, thank you. So, well, this has been we've seen a lot of things, a lot of development. My gosh, went from 1,500 people to 14,000. This is insane how this is growing. Thank you. Okay.
Margaret, you got it? Shirley, the long-suffering bride. Thank you, Shirley, for sharing him with us.
I never went to bed at night until I got home. All right, thank you, everyone.
That's great.
Now you gotta find a different vest to wear, Jeff.
My wardrobe in the town of Harrison.
Very good. Okay, we have 3 presentations this evening. First up is by Martinson and Isley. And I want to commend you on getting it done a month early.
Well, thank you.
So thank you very much.
All right. I understand you have a very long agenda, so I will try to move through this really quickly. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, cool.
So if I'm moving too quickly, just let me know, or if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, let me know. Oh, did you press it? Oh, got it, okay. So what really prompted us to start with this long-term planning is that there is a deteriorated force main, coming from the Station 3. That needs to be repaired or replaced, and so we need to look at that in terms of the adequacy of its size. Lift Station 3 is located on North Shore Road. The force main is a 4-inch ductile iron pipe. It was installed in the 80s and has burst a couple times, most recently in 2013. So that prompted us to get moving on the long-term planning. There's really 4 components to the study. We're looking at the existing system capacities, the flow limitations leaving our system downstream, future planning areas, and the future improvement recommendations and the costs. So the comparison utility system is basically broken up into 2 different sections, more or less. Divided by the highway 10-114. So the south system includes lift stations 3 to 2 to 1 on the south side of the highway and close to the city of Menasha. The north system consists of lift stations 6 and 4, which flow to the village of Fox Crossing, and ultimately everything flows together and goes to be treated at the Neenah Menasha Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility. This is the current sewer service area as defined by East Central Regional Planning Commission. But it will be very soon updated. There's an approved plan that they will be getting in place, which is a year 2040 plan. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, the next three slides, show the, basically what we are allowed to send to various entities downstream and what we are, the current flows that we are seeing, going downstream. The south system goes to the city of Menasha, and we have an agreement that we are allowed to send 500,000 gallons per day. We are currently seeing about an average of about 90,000 gallons per day. In the last 5 years, the maximum day we've seen is about 350,000 gallons per day. That's the south system. The north system, going to the village of Fox Crossing, includes an agreement of about 900,000 gallons per day. On average, we've seen about 350,000 gallons per day over the last 5 years. And the maximum day we've seen in the last 5 years is about 850,000 gallons. Likewise, we have an agreement with the Neenah Menasha Sewage Commission for 2.1 million gallons. And the maximum we've seen in the last 5 years is 1.2 million gallons. So in each of those three instances, our existing flows in the last 5 years have been under what we have agreements for. This slide shows the average pump running times in each of the 5 lift stations that exist in here for Harrison Utilities. That's with both pumps running, so you can see also that the lift stations are not running real excessively. Okay. So the next part of the study involves evaluating the sanitary sewer system south of Highway 10 and 114. Primarily because that is where this deteriorating force main is, and we wanted to get a really good feel on what's happening there. This shows the 10 segments along that south system that were analyzed. And the chart that follows shows the existing capacity in each of those 10 sections, as well as the existing maximum flows that we are seeing or estimating for each of those sections. So here too, we can see that our existing flows are below our existing capacities for that south system. Okay. So next, we start thinking about looking at future flows and future development and what that will result in. So we mentioned earlier that East Central Regional Planning Commission has approved a 2040 plan that while we're really waiting on to be implemented is an approval letter from DNR. And that 2040 Fox Cities Sewer Service Area Plan includes covers the 4 wastewater treatment facilities in our area as listed on the slide. Harrison Utilities is part of the Neenah Menasha Sewage Commission SSA plan. The next slide just generally shows the area that East Central governs. And the map on the right shows the Fox Cities sewer service area. So it's important to point out that when East Central develops these sewer service areas, they have what's called a sewer service area, SSA, and then they have also a planning area. And the SSA, or the sewer service area, is where you generally are allowed to extend sewer and to bring in new development. If you want to develop something in their planning area, that typically requires swapping out land from your sewer service area. The planning area is kind of defined as a tool for long-range planning. This is the East Central Regional Planning Commission, shows the existing boundary as well as the what they're bringing in for the 2040 plan. So the areas that have the hatching within the red, is what is brought into the sewer service area. And the yellow shading is just the planning area. In general, what they brought in was everything that would be tributary to lift station 6, because we have the ability to serve that right away. They also in this, in the southwest corner of this yellow planning area is fire lane 12 and 13, which we all know has been talked about for a while. So within that planning area, we defined 5 different areas that could possibly be served and looked at how to serve them by laying out a preliminary sanitary sewer network. You'll note from this slide that to serve those 5 areas, it would require an addition of 5 new lift stations, which would double the number of lift stations you have now. So, we evaluated, all the downstream system, the capability of the downstream system to handle each of these areas. And a table is provided that shows, in general, all of the infrastructure downstream is adequate on the south side to serve fire lane 12 and 13 and area B. All that would be needed would be to upsize the pumps in lift station 3. Likewise, if we bring in area D, we would have to add the lift stations that would be required, and also upsize pumps, but the rest of the infrastructure would be under. When we start looking at bringing in anything above the highway, area C and area B, those we could not accommodate in our south system. So we would have to look at bringing those into our north system, possibly into our lift station 6 service area, depending on development. So we wanted to just present some costs for both in that future planning area, and then also just give you some costs for interceptor sewers if we were to extend into areas that are already within the lift station 4 or 6 service area, because those lift stations are already there. It's your biggest bang for your buck, more or less. And this is something we also talked about when we were doing the connection fee. That you'll notice that these are the same slides. Okay, all right. To serve the area in fire lanes 12 and 13, plus the area just to the northeast of that, which includes anything shown in the green sewer, the yellow sewer, the 2 lift stations. We're talking about $6 million. And that would generally serve the fire lane 12 and 13 areas, which is typically within the SSA area, except for the small portion in the northeast corner. This shows a slide of interceptor sewers within the lift station 4 service area. If we were to put in interceptors in a phased approach over in 4 different phases, these would be the estimated costs, both present day and future costs, assuming that you would do them in different years. That would open up development within the lift station 4 service area that could be served by lift station 4. These are interceptors that would be within the lift station 6 service area. We're showing 5 separate interceptors, and assuming that you would construct those in a phased approach, we presented present costs and then the future cost, assuming the 3% inflation. So ultimately, the recommendation, going back to the beginning of the presentation, the lift station number 3 force main, we feel is adequate to remain at 4-inch. The considerations for that are listed. And we are currently working with a number of contractors and the CN Railroad to come up with budgetary costs and requirements, and hope to have that information to you very soon.
Wow. Chad.
So if I can just add a little comments too, so this has been a very detailed process to get to whether lift station number 3 improvements should be 4-inch or 6-inch. But we didn't feel comfortable as staff investing in it without looking at future flows and trying to understand where the village would grow. I don't think tonight we're not looking for a recommendation from the board, but we need you guys to think about what kinds of projects do we want to implement after lift station 3 upgrades are done. So our priority now is to focus on getting the lift station 3 project done, and we call this in the capital improvements plan. It was budgeted at about $700,000, so we'll be working aggressively to get that done, but then from there, we need to know from the board and some direction on, do you want to focus on interceptors? Do you want to focus on fire lane 12 and 13 and what that looks like? So we're hoping to have continued dialogue with the board going forward on this, but I think for now, M&E has given us a good amount of information to consider and look at and kind of help us line ourselves up for the future for some long range goals.
Very good. Mark, you have a question?
Yes, I just want to say, I met with you guys 2 months ago, with staff, and we talked about the challenges of doing this, and I just want to say that I think Lawrence Ansley has done a very, very good job here, very detailed.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
especially meeting, coming to the board a month ahead of time,
Month early.
a month early, which is very impressive, so. I can't say enough about your team, about the excellent work you have done, and you've met all the requests, from our staff, which is excellent, so I want to thank you and your team again.
Thank you. And thanks to Chad and Brandon. Huge help.
Okay, Scott?
Thank you. So question, so in that area around 114, is that assuming, for fire lane 12, 13 area B and D and C, is that not just residential? Would that change if it was commercial? If we decided to update the comp plan and change some of that to commercial, would that change anything?
So if you look at the slide that's behind you, is this the one you're looking at? You can actually,
Yeah.
you can actually see where we designated the commercial development to D.
But if we change that, let's say, that change the numbers much?
I don't believe it would change it too much. I think the only area that we had commercial development, we had a little bit in the fire lane 12 and 13 area.
So what we did is we didn't really look at the future land use yet, because we understand that needs to be updated, but we looked at areas where we thought commercial development occurred, and a lot of it probably occurred just on the frontage on 114 and then County N and fire lane 12 area, so that's designated and in there already. I mean, if there is opportunity for more commercial development, let's say, I don't think it's gonna be that big of impact, but we did factor in future commercial in those areas.
And then my next question is, so the costs in here that you have, is that today's cost? Or is it, I guess what I'm getting at is you mentioned inflation at 3%, which we all know is not 3%, right? So
Right. Oh, you mean it's more than? The cost presented here, the 6 million is a present cost. And the two costs were, the two slides for the interceptor sewers in those lift station 6 and 4, those present future cost base of 3%. So you're saying you don't think that's
I don't think that cost
enough?
of 3% is right. I mean, we all know right now inflation is not 3%, it's a lot higher. So I guess
Well, but
I'm fine with the assumption, I'm talking. I'm just saying, is there a table, I guess we can do it ourselves and figure out a different inflationary number, I'm just saying, it's compounded, right? So 3%. Might be 3% in 2025, hopefully, right? But it's not. I guess that's where I'm kind of looking at that cost. I mean, that's a better number at 3% than it is at 6%, right? So-
Right. And it's going to. These are all very preliminary estimates, because as you can see, we're estimating construction years as well. And I would expect that that would vary also. But if you're in agreement generally with it, with what is presented in this presentation, I'm going to finalize all of this in a report format. So if there's anything like that that you want me to change, I'd be happy to do that.
I know we don't have a crystal.
Right.
Well, and I think the fact that these estimates are
I
going.
mean, are you gonna interrupt me every time that I'm talking?
It was my.
No, I wasn't done.
But if you look at year
I'm gonna say,
24,
call the order. You can't interrupt people just because you want to interject. I'm kind of sick and tired of you interjecting your thoughts. You are a parliamentarian. You're not supposed to interject on people when they're asking questions.
are you done? Okay, getting back, the estimates go out to year 2034. A lot is gonna change between now and 2034. I don't think we need to get hung up on future costs and inflation numbers, because a lot is gonna change by 2034.
Well, that's your opinion.
Yes, it is, and I have my opinion. But I want to thank you for your reports. Are there any other questions? Trustee Lancaster.
Madam President, I have 3 questions. First one. On page 18 again, if we can go back to the, for the future planning area.
This one?
Correct, thank you. For the top right of the slide there, I do see that there's a section along Highway 10 of the fluid. We think it has in the Darwood sanitary district service area. That's right. Which is some prime frontage there on both sides of the road, if I'm looking at that right, is that correct? So that would require some of the trading that you mentioned, if we were wanting to try to service that, or is it not even topography
You're talking,
able for us to service it?
you're referring to the part that's in white right now, not even in yellow.
Correct.
Okay,
The white part along Highway 10 there at the very top of the slide.
that's not even in our planning area.
It's not in the 2040 planning area. So we have to work through amending the plan, and then I'm guessing in Cedar and Garboy or.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, was there, if it's in Norway's planning area, I guess, since it's still in East Central Wisconsin, planning controls both. Right, they don't. All their own. It's already central.
It's separate services.
Different, it goes to different sewage plant, all in the flows, and they would be, yes, right.
It would be very difficult to bring the white area in.
Okay. That answers question 1 then. Question 2, those peak flows you're seeing. Do we have a clear water inflow problem that we need to be trying to address that's causing some of those very high peak flows? I see the one that's got a note of possible error, but then there's other days there, it looks like some pretty high peak flows.
So the March of 2019 peak flows, everybody in the system that deposits into Needham and National had seen a similar issue. So I don't know if it was a quick flash rain event at that time, but those are kind of anomaly. But we are addressing we're finishing right now. Matter of fact, the board had approved televising of the sewer, so we'll be able to get a better feel for what our inflow looks like and start addressing that.
Thank you. And then my last question. If I'm understanding right, and this goes to future items for this board to consider. But I'm seeing you've mapped out here on slide 20. Water feature was slide. Well, I guess there are 2 different slides here, so slides 23 and slides 24. That you have mapped out these potential interceptors to serve vacant land. It's my understanding that as long as we would plan to do these projects. And actually then do these projects, they become eligible to be charged as sewer connection fees. And as we even have growth experiencing now in lift station 4 and lift station 6, if we plan to do these someday. It would be probably advantageous for us to look at those connection fees again sooner than later to incorporate these future interceptors to start be able to recover, start building those costs to go to these projects. Is that right?
Yes, so the connection fee study that was done recently involved, the connection fees for that included the oversizing costs for these particular interceptor sewers, which is the portion that the village has to pay anyway, that according to your ordinance. But these costs are for you to actually construct the sewer. So yes, if you chose to do that and put it in the connection fee, you would want to update the connection fee study. Am I right, Matt?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's at the time we actually do the project.
Well, you just have to plan to do the project, right? So let's say that we plan to do you have one here in 2027. If we are planning to construct this in 2027, we can pull that into that lift station for now and start collecting those costs now, so that can be funding to actually construct this in a couple of years, as long as you actually use the connection fees one day. With my understanding, we went through all that stuff with the lawyer that time and all.
That's my understanding too.
So we can't just kick, but I guess why I'm asking this, and thank you. Very thorough presentation, well, appreciate that. We can't just ignore these things and just think, oh, it's 2027 or it's 2030 or 2034 and then not do anything. We need to really start doing some. We need to take this information and do some more serious planning and work on this summer. So that we just, because we're missing an opportunity, there's development happening that we're not collecting a connection fee on that could be to continue to fund additional commercial growth in this village. And that's a mistake if we don't start looking at that soon. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mary Jo. We will be in touch. Okay, so. All right. Final plan is also the economic development strategic plan. Or redevelopment through services. Hello.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Fish Peterson with Redevelopment Resources, and we've been working on the economic development strategic plan for the village for the past few months. So this plan was to help you diversify your tax base and come up with a plan to do that. So you're hoping to recruit more commercial in the industrial and retail and office uses in addition to your existing residential. So we interviewed elected officials, key staff, several local stakeholders, including realtors, contractors, and developers. And then we utilized the survey results from a survey that the village had implemented of its residents. We had access to those survey results. We also pulled data from several data sources and came up with your community profile, which we're using this information to market the community in the marketing material that we developed. We looked at your population growth and your educational attainment. We looked at your median home value comparison and your median income, and Harrison stands out in those areas. We have the highest median home value in the region, and among your peers, we based peer comparison against Hilbert, Kimberly, Kaukauna, Menasha, and Appleton, the same communities to which have school districts where your students attend. And we also then did the median income comparison as well. And Harrison again stands out. We did a SWOT analysis and looked at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the village. I always like to see more strengths and opportunities than threats and weaknesses, and that's what you have here. You have a lot of opportunity and a lot of strengths here as a village. You have land, you're fast growing, you have high household incomes, high average home values, young median age, high educational attainment, your location is a strength, and you have connectivity. As far as opportunities are concerned, you have land to market, which is an enviable position where some communities don't have land to market. They don't have land available for development. Your homeowner and renter vacancy rate is low, which is an opportunity for housing development. Your retail opportunities include building materials, gas stations, lawn and garden supply, beer, liquor, and wine, specialty food, health, personal care, home furnishings, and limited service restaurants. Commercial opportunities include banking, real estate, insurance, accounting, legal, engineering, architecture, construction, business to business, and a lot of those are services that would serve your residents here and the businesses that you have here already. Light industrial opportunities include construction services, ag-related services, distribution, warehousing, data centers, metal finishing, machine shops, light assembly, laser fab, weld shops, and smaller startups. We also saw a huge opportunity for agritourism. And that's a kind of an exciting area for Harrison, because you do have such a large amount of agriculture land and vacant or non-developed, undeveloped land. Another opportunity is creating a business park. And that I would recommend down the road a ways. But that is an opportunity. When we did our interviews and talked to the folks in the area, definitely there was positive response to a potential business park for Harrison. So it was a positive. We identified the key development areas, created a map, and then we created marketing material around each of these sites. Not going over the marketing material in this presentation, but I think you have access to that. We did a competitive analysis and we compared the business and industrial parks in neighboring communities. The extensive analysis is in the full report, but there were several categories of businesses where there were opportunities for growth and complementary services, complementary businesses based on what's already in the market. And I've listed those there on the screen. As far as agritourism is concerned, this is going to bring visitors to the community and kind of put Harrison on the map, so to speak, for things to do in the area. It's kind of hard to compete with College Avenue and downtown Appleton for the things that they offer, but Harrison can offer completely different things that would be unique to you. And so as far as marketing the opportunity for anyone who has property to turn their farm or their agriculture land or some of their property into an opportunity for agritourism, I think that would be a neat draw for the community and an opportunity to attract not only interest from visitors coming through, but also potential new residents would want to live in an area that has these opportunities. So the goals, we came up with 9 goals for Harrison. They look at your typical economic development things in light of the uniqueness that we discovered in this report. So undertaking a robust business attraction effort directed at retail and commercial development is a goal of yours to make sure you can offer services and goods to the residents in Harrison. Undertaking targeted business attraction efforts towards light industrial, warehousing, ag-related services, distribution, and data center is another goal. A third goal would be to look at that agritourism opportunity. Then marketing the community through the strategies laid out in the plan is another goal. Exploring the feasibility of developing the business park. Extending sanitary sewer service throughout more of the village to enhance infrastructure. So I think you're already checking that box by everything that we just heard in the last presentation. Continue to facilitate the development of residential units. If there's one thing I could emphasize in our report, everyone that we talked to from outside the village, every realtor, every developer said, they said encourage the village of Harrison not to take their foot off the gas in developing residential units. Commercial development is looking at heads and beds. How many people are in your market? It doesn't make sense for a restaurant to come here if you don't have enough population to support that restaurant. So relying on the residents to support restaurants and other commercial, you're going to be more successful in attracting new commercial if you continue to develop residential. Then conducting business retention visits is important, and facilitating business startup is also important. That includes, there were funding strategies. There it is. We talked about using TIP, and I think you're good at that as a village already, using those resources. I think creating a community development authority might help you handle development as it comes in, another body that's looking at developments and an opportunity to use that body to borrow money if necessary, make investments, own land, maybe help pay for some of that sewer service. The Board of Commissioners of Public Lands has loan opportunities, and we've listed some other options there that you can take advantage of for funding.
Thank you. It's a very good, very thorough report. The one that's included in our packet has a lot of information.
Yeah.
Any questions? Trustee Lancaster.
Thank you. Two questions. We see, you identify as a weakness, the volunteer fire department / no ambulance. On the speak for the no ambulance piece. A little bit, is the more of a business is looking for that, or can you speak why that's listed as a weakness?
It was listed when we asked, when we did our interviews, that was mentioned as a weakness. I think that the response time is a concern for communities that are growing.
Sure. So our response time definitely needs help, so that makes sense. And then. The other question, as far as the goals and objectives here, there's 9 goals. And I know from being in business, when you have 9 goals, sometimes it's hard to focus when you have this many different things. So if you have to pick your top 3, and don't put you on the spot to answer right now, but I would encourage you to follow up to the board. Where we'd really like to know what your top 3 recommendations would be. So that we really have some things to truly hone in on and focus on.
Sure, I could. I can take a stab right now if you like.
That's fine, you're open on the spot, but either way, it's fine.
I would say marketing available commercial real estate is number 1. I would say number 2 would be continue to facilitate the development of residential units. And the third one would be, I would lump 1, 2, and 3 together. Business attraction.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We look forward to continuing to work with you too. Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've got a long trip back to Madison, right?
Yep.
Safe travels. Excuse me. Thank you for coming out. All right. You're up.
I don't
A lot of numbers to go through tonight. Did everybody get their back in here? Praise God, the pleasure. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you. So over the last couple of months, I've been working with Matt and Chad, looking at kind of some long range planning, especially with some facilities that the village is taking a look at and funding sources for those larger capital projects. And so what I'm going to go through tonight is really some possible options, some long range planning and discussion for discussion purposes only. So if we look at the first page here, what I wanted to show you real quick is that bond ratings are very important when it comes to larger capital projects, because the better the bond credit rating that you have, the better the interest rate you're going to receive when you go out and need to borrow for those larger capital projects. So in your instance, when you look at this page, your current rating is a AA1. That puts you in the high grade category. There's only one notch you can go higher, which is the AAA. So I think this really shows that you, as the board and as a community, have really done a very good job of watching your finances, making sure you have, enough reserves set aside at all times, that you're watching what you're borrowing, and being strategic about when you do borrow. So when to the far right there, what I think is interesting is that, there aren't that many communities and counties in Wisconsin that have as good a bond credit rating as you do. So again, when you're going out to the market, you're receiving some of the lower interest rates that you would, that maybe some of your other neighbors may not be able to receive because of the strong bond credit rating that you have. So that's an important piece because, for instance, today I assisted a client with the $17.5 million financing for a public works facility. That one, we received just over a 4% interest rate. 4% versus our projected 5% interest rate was a couple $1 million. Because they had a strong bond credit rating is what allowed them to get that that better interest rate, which saved their taxpayers essentially $2 million in the process. So it's a very important part of the overall planning process. So when we go to page 2 here, what I wanted to show you was a summary of your outstanding debt. So there's a few different outstanding debt issues that you've done over the last several years. And that's what this combined debt service on the left side of the page represents. So you have, say, 5 outstanding debt issues that you've done. You know, we did one last year, the year before that. That all adds into this combined debt service. You can see what the principal is on an annual basis for those outstanding issues, and then what the interest is on an annual basis. Then, when you look at the middle of the page, you have some TIF supported debt service. So your tax increment district number 1 is supporting the debt service tied to a certain debt issue. So you're not putting that debt on the tax levy. The TIF is supporting that debt service. So then we have those as offsets. And then your far right side of the page, that's your net levy supported debt service. So for instance, you have $1,085,000 principal payment in 2024. You have an interest payment of $114,000 for a total of $1,199,509. Then it drops down significantly the next year, down to $581,755. And that's been part of the planning that we've communicated and we've talked about from year over year, because ultimately it was to try to pay down the debt fast to save interest cost, but also build a nice drop in the debt service in the event you needed to fund additional capital projects, as you wouldn't see as much of a tax impact year over year to your taxpayers, taking it in a more strategic approach. So that's why the big drop in debt service. So that kind of sets the stage for page 3. So municipalities, we've talked about this in the past, but municipalities are allowed to borrow up to 5% of your equalized valuation. Well, the village's valuation has really grown significantly over the last several years. You know, 10+% in growth over the last several years. Well, when you look at this page, what this represents is the black bars. That's that existing debt that we were just talking about. So every year that goes by, that black bar gets reduced year over year because you're paying down your debt service. The gray there is what you have available for borrowing capacity under the general obligation authority. So again, 5% of your equalized valuation is the max you can potentially use for states and for municipalities in Wisconsin. So with basically a $1.9 billion valuation, you can think it's close to $100 million in available borrowing capacity. You haven't used much of your capacity, so you got almost $92+ million in available capacity if you wanted to fund projects. Now, we would never go that close, but it's just really to show you that you've done a really good job. You got plenty of capacity in the event an important capital project needs to be borrowed for. That's what that's showing. Now, page 4, this is where we get into the fun stuff. This is the numbers. Because what I want to show here is walking you from the left side of the page to the right side of the page. So the left side of the page, that's your existing debt service. So that's what we were just talking about. All your outstanding debt issues kind of flowing into an annual repayment schedule. So again, the left side, $1.2 million drops down to $581. Then what we did was we looked at a first scenario that says, if you were to borrow for a public safety building at $7.5 million, and this is again, kind of based off an SEH study that was done, and Matt and Chad have shared with me. We kind of had some discussions about what that cost may actually look like. So $7.5 million for that, and then a DPW Village Hall for $4.81 million. So if you were to combine those into one financing and do a 20-year financing based on the useful life of that project, because if you were to fund that project, hopefully that would be around for at least 20 years, but you can only go up to 20 years per state statutes in Wisconsin. So if we were to do that all in 2025, you can see what the annual debt service payments may look like on a $12.3 million financing. So it's about $975,000 per year. Now, as I've shown you in the past, I like to use conservative interest rates for planning purposes, because again, we're talking about 2025. When we potentially would finance this, and like I just said, you know, a credit rating that was less than yours just received just above a 4% interest rate. So if we were in the market today, you would probably get a rate under 4%. In the bond market, which is pretty unbelievable when you're hearing about the interest rates that are out there right now. But that's the municipal bond world right now. So when you keep going to the right side of the page, you can see in that existing plus 2025 debt service. So when we factor in your existing debt service payments, this $12.3 million financing, you can see what the debt service payments may look like year over year. And the thing that I want to point out is I highlighted it there in red, because you would essentially drop down to the 581. You would do the financing in 2025 when you're ready. And then that would have a first debt service payment in 2026, because you couldn't put that on the tax levy because you didn't borrow for it until 2025. So it goes on the next year's tax levy. So you kind of have a drop and then back up. Which, you know, there's potential other options here that you're going to be talking about later, which is totally fine. But then we took it a step further. Hypothetical future borrowings, this is kind of that, if you were to continue financing your road improvements for up to, say, $1.8 million on an annual basis, what does that debt service look like? And when you then factor that into the overall picture, that total combined debt service, that's where you can see that it eventually starts, you know, going up a little bit year over year until we get to a point in 2032 where it starts to level off at around $3.1 million. So kind of taking in incremental chunks year over year. The other thing I want to point out on this scenario is if you were to do both projects at the same time for the full amount, that would put you over $10 million in a calendar year. Why that's important is because when you borrow for over $10 million in a calendar year, that's considered non-bank qualified financing. You're going to pay a little bit higher interest rate for that type of financing. So in this example, and I'll show you on the next one, I estimate about 0.25% higher interest rate for doing that. And why you get a little bit higher interest rate on that is because when you say bank qualified financing, banks have an incentive to bid on your financing because they receive a tax benefit for buying that type of debt. So more demand for the financing brings down the interest rate because of the demand. So that's something to consider. I'm not saying we would do this type of strategy. We may want to look at $10 million 1 year, finish off the fine next year at, you know, the remaining $2.3 million to get both issues bank qualified. There's all sorts of different strategies, but this is really just a scenario one that says, if you were to do it all, here's what it would look like on an annual basis. So that's kind of the base case, I would say, when you're thinking about these projects. Now let's go to the next page. So if you were to decide to say, okay, let's break this up into focus on one project at a time, not just kind of do both of them at the same time. Let's try to break it up and do one first and then the next one following year. So if we started off with the public safety building at $7.5 million, you can see same concept over 20 years, the debt service payments on that about $580,000. Then if you came back the next year, 2026, again, to get that bank qualified benefit, and, you know, focused on one project, doesn't make sense to do both of them at the same time. That's totally up to you. But then you come back in 2026, do that financing, and then you can see the existing plus 2025 debt service. Well, that potentially is going to look. So basically, when you look at the existing plus 2025 mill rate, again, it has that drop for 1 year, and then it kind of goes back up a little bit, and then kind of peaks out at the $1.81 for about a 12-cent impact over what you're currently paying on your debt service. So again, 81 cents minus the 69 cents that you currently have is that 12 cents. And if you think about it on
a dollar basis, 12 cents on $100,000 property is $12. Is essentially what it comes out to be. So then what we did, again, for each scenario, modeled out that 1.8 in the event that that were to continue. And then you can see how that debt service how we're basically having it increase a little bit year over year strategically, again, until you get to that point in 2032 where it levels off, just like in the scenario one. The same kind of concept. When you look at this scenario versus scenario one, if you look at the total debt service columns, this scenario has about $425,000 less in debt service because of the bank qualified strategy and breaking it up into two different financings and capturing that better interest rate. So that's a significant amount of money. Now, if we go to the last page, which is the village has done a very good job of selecting and having a strong reserve, a good fund balance. And that's what helped you get such a good bond credit rating. But that doesn't mean you can't use it. You do have that ability to use some of that cash and still potentially, I'm not the credit analyst, but I do see these things all the time. And say we apply, say, up to $5 million of your reserve. As long as you're meeting your current policy and close to that 25 to 30%, we should still feel pretty good about being able to maintain our bond credit rating. So if we were to apply, say, $5 million in reserves to bring down the borrowing of these projects, so from the 12.3 down to 7.3, and finance these in 2025, you can see that the debt service for that project goes down to about $565,000 per year. When you look at the existing plus 2025 mill rate on those projects, you're at 69 cents right now. It basically only goes to 62 cents. So it actually has a reduction from where you currently are, even with funding these projects. So that's pretty cool. If you were to finance the $1.8 million in capital projects for roads continuing going forward, on the far right side of the page, you can see that it, again, small incremental increases of, anywhere from a couple cents to around 10 cents per year until we get to that point in 2032 where we level off at, say, $2.69 million. So, and that basically maxes out at about $1.26 for that mill rate. So it is, all sorts of different things to factor in. But this tries to take everything that we know right now based on the projects, your fund balance and so forth. Also trying to maintain your bond credit rating. So if you do borrow for these projects, we are able to continue to capture the strong interest rates. This is what it may look like. And then if we go to the last page, page 7, which I think kind of brings it all together, is if we focus on that last scenario, scenario 3, and your borrowing capacity. This takes your existing, the 2025 financing for the $7+ million and the future $1.8 million financings every year going forward for life. You can still see how it's layered in there, what the gray bars still look like, which basically puts you at 84 to 85% still remaining capacity to fund any other large capital projects that may come up into the future for the village. So that gives me a lot of comfort that says, you're still in really good financial shape, even if you were to do these capital projects. But then again, that's totally up to you if that's what you feel is important for the village. So, with that, I'll entertain any questions anyone has.
Trustee Lancaster.
Yeah, a couple of questions. You referenced 25 to 30% for reserves. Is that in our annual budget or what is that 25 to 30% of?
So it's typically 25% of your general fund revenues or expenditures. And Moody's kind of takes it in different views. They were looking for above 30%, but they're looking at anything that's liquid, what is liquid that you could essentially put into that category? So even if it's assigned, you know, it can always kind of be changed. So they consider that part of the fund balance in their metrics. In your metrics, you may look at it as only unassigned.
Okay, thank you. And then a couple more questions here. So if I'm looking at your slide 6 here. Because to me, I think if we do some of these projects. We do have, like you mentioned, substantial reserves, and if we want to use some of those reserves for projects, we're willing to taxpayers for the service, we're not meant to be just sucking money away for nothing, so. But I'm looking at this, so right now, on the existing plus 2025 mill rate, the 69 cents per thousand, that is our existing debt service already factored in. That would keep our, and more from Manager Heiser as well here. That is the point that keeps our mill rate flat at the 349 per thousand, correct? Correct. Adjusted a little bit probably for growth because it extends. Obviously, if we have more growth, then you get a little more room to. But still staying there. So what I'm looking at here, if we're using reserves here and you look at how this goes. It appears that we can definitely do these projects without increasing taxes, depending on what the final numbers would come into play. If we're willing to use fund reserves, is that correct, Manager Hazer? Correct.
I got one question.
Hold on, I wasn't done yet, please.
Right.
If I can finish, and then I'll turn the floor back over, so I'm just trying to have this all on top once. What is staff's plan here, I guess? Figuring out exactly DPW a little bit more here. And we've got an RFQ pending for Station 70. This is, I guess, with the fire chief too, are you guys working together to also figure out for Station 60? How much potential we would need there to come up with like a comprehensive plan here on some of this?
Yeah, so if I could jump in, our plan at the moment is to follow through on the Station 70 RFQ. We try to put a cost estimate on that project, which kind of sets the initial stake in the ground. From that point, we would have to kind of map out what other renovations would need to happen to 60 and the DPW and attach price tags to those projects as well. To kind of see how the numbers ripple out in the future. So there'd be options available to the board if you wanted to be more aggressive and do them now versus to pay more attention to the mill rate and space them over time. Does that answer your question, man?
It does, I just think we need to have a roadmap here where we're going. I know you can only do so much at one time, but to kind of. Even if even if you're not looking at something quite yet, you're looking at it in 3 months or something. That we can have that roadmap, okay, we're waiting for this RFQ back. We're gonna be working with this, whoever selected for 2 or 3 months. Maybe they're qualified to help with the 60 renovations that are needed, we're gonna look at them in 3 months. Whatever that time frame is, same thing with DPW, I really almost see phases there too, where what is the safety improvements that need to be taking place, like I know Jeff. Funk, our operations manager, had mentioned there's no welding to it, things like that out there, the breakroom we've talked about. How do you phase? Some of that, where you're not moving the same dirt twice either, I mean, right, it's gotta make sense, but then we have a roadmap for where we're going here, because. I wanna make sure that we're not leaving, there's not a perception out there. That it's a or, I really see this stuff as an and. It's just sequencing these projects so that they can be done feasibly and that we're not. We're properly explaining this stuff to our taxpayers because we do have significant fund reserves. The other piece that's also not factored in here that we cannot forget about, that I do not see in any of these implications in any of these charts. Is. We brought it along to have the exact number here. We have an additional $351,079. In shared revenue that must go to preferably public safety was the whole idea. The state legislature did that, but also public works is eligible as well. But that $351,079 is not a year, that grows too. There's an inflation number factored in, and the Department of Revenue supplied a whole chart of how they were predicting that number to change every year. That also needs to be worked in here because that's a significant. I mean, if I look here, for example, I mean, the borrowing on public safety here. If we borrow the full 7.5 million here. Year one, 500,000, you've got a total shared revenue of 407, so you could even use that whole thing, but let's just say we are just shifting supplemental by year two. You know, we're 580 with roughly the payment, you've got a significant part of the payment here. We've got 2% dues money, we've got also, we can't forget about. The other item that's not factored in here either is the fire impact fees. Those fire impact fees were done by Ayers planning a new facility. There's over $1 million sitting there, plus those are collected each year, so that revenue also needs to be factored in here when we're predicting what our total payment is to make sure we're getting to some real numbers.
Okay, we're kind of getting into the weeds here, so let's.
Well, I'm trying to understand and make sure.
That's why we need additional meetings to coordinate the planning for 70, 60 and DPW. All right, that's why I have asked for more meetings with the board so that we can do this planning. So let's not get too far afield of what Justin's here to present tonight. And Jared, you had a comment.
Yeah, I'll keep my comments short. I think maybe this is what trustee Lancaster was getting at. Chad, Matt, Jeff and I have been meeting on a fairly consistent basis to discuss how we're gonna proceed, what kind of recommendations we can bring forward to the board. We're trying to be proactive on a lot of these things because there are a lot of parts, right? And we're doing a lot of brainstorming and we want to be very careful of the unintended consequences. You know, if you shift lever A, what happens to lever B and lever C? And we don't want to, you know, just do this halfway in a manner of speaking. We want to make sure that we are bringing a logical approach to this. So.
Thank you. Any other questions for Justin? We will be talking with you soon in the future. A lot of decisions that have been made.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Very good. All right. Are you sure to move on to reports? Jared, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. My original intent was to sit in this chair this evening and just simply ask if there were any questions and move forward. However, being in the nature of emergency services and the sheriff's department can relate, we need to be fluid. My pager to go off right now, Chief Deputy Brees could be paged out at any moment. So there is one thing I do want to bring to your attention. Our EMS squad has been very busy as of late. We've been averaging 3-4 calls a day. And today, I just want to give a little shout out to a couple of the sheriff's deputies that assisted us on an EMS call. We were quite literally loading somebody into the ambulance on a call, and we got paged out again. We happened to be relatively close to a PNB, pulseless non-breathing individual. The EMS squad showed up, and as of now, this happened this afternoon, the individual has since made it. So we made somebody who was not alive, and I just wanted to give that shout out not only to the sheriff's deputies that assisted us, but to your EMS squad that saved a life today. So now I can ask you if you have any questions.
Very good. Any comments or questions? But the one comment I have is I'm very thankful to see the response times. And I was surprised at how many EMS calls there actually are. It's
Roughly 70%.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Anything else, trustee
Just
Lancaster?
one very brief question, chief. Would it be easy enough to pull the EMS calls onto a separate sheet just because there is so many, so that, because we know the EMS response times are gonna be different too, because those individuals are going direct to scene from their houses versus coming to a station first?
I can look into that. As you're fully aware, we are implementing that new software system. And the preliminary data that I get to see, I have it broken down at 6 o'clock. This is how many calls we get. At 7 o'clock, this is the average number of calls we get. So it's looking good. I can look into that. I don't think it'll be an issue. So I'll leave it at, I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none, thank you, Chief.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Chief Deputy Breeze. I don't think I want to know what happened on March 31st.
I was actually gonna touch on that. Good evening. Everyone. I just have a few things from the stats from the handouts that the board would have gotten. I put these reports together, so I'm, familiar with how many calls typically there are in a month, and this month was, I would say, right on average. There's usually around 300 to 350 calls probably per month. Some of that can vary, obviously, on time of year and proactivity with deputies, or how much time they have available to do proactive things like traffic stops and things of that nature. Just because this is an unusual arrest, the one that was mentioned on March 31st, the attempted first degree homicide. I can't really get into the details because nothing's been referred to the district attorney's office at this point. However, what I will say is that it involved an elderly relationship, and there were some cognitive issues with one of the individuals and persons being treated for those problems right now. So until that is assessed and handled, then at that point, we probably would refer to the district attorney, and they'll make a decision on if this should even be charged at that point. That's really all I can say about it. And it isn't, I just wanted to clarify that because that obviously is an unusual one to see.
Right.
I have a few more things just to kind of give some updates, but I wanted to ask, were there any other questions specifically about the monthly report?
No, that's not.
Okay. Just for everyone's knowledge, more or less, is some things that have been going on in the county, but they also affect the village. Flock cameras, we, along with the cities, really in Chilton and New Holstein, through county ARPA funds, we're able to get 12 cameras, which are traffic license plate reader cameras. That was done in last year's budget, and the implementation started this year. So as it stands right now, there is one up in Harrison near Calumet. There are a few other ones that are going up in Harrison and also around the remainder of the county. I believe I touched on this last year at one point, but there are some safeguards for privacy with these cameras, so they're not taking photos of people. They only capture back license plates of vehicles and only are stored in the database for 30 days. After that time, they're wiped from the system. And because this is a camera system that's used all over the country, that's part of the reason they're using just rear license plate capture beyond just the privacy concerns that everyone has, or that could come up. A lot of states don't have front license plates, so hence another reason they're using rear license plates. We did also have, as a capital expense last year, that is a project we're working on, is a new command post or a command trailer. So anytime there are any emergency events, whether they're sheriff's office, it could be a long-term fire scene if it was needed, or anytime our emergency command, our emergency manager would need it for any sort of, natural disaster type event, that can be brought out. It is replacing an old steel trailer, which is very heavy. This new one is aluminum. It's longer and it's just a little more efficient for our use. But we're hoping that should be ready in August of this year. Lieutenant Tenner is normally at these meetings. I had asked him if he had anything he wanted me to pass along. He had been working on radar boards and getting estimates on those. He said he's still waiting for all of those quotes to come in. Hopefully here the next month we'll have more information for you. And then finally, just briefly wanted to touch on body cameras. We are in the process of looking at body cameras for next year for the 2025 budget. We currently are the only law enforcement agency in the county that do not have them. And frankly, we probably should have them 10 years ago at this point. They're critical for evidence collection, as well as accountability, to know what
happens on both sides of the call, whether it be the deputy or the citizen or the suspect or whomever. So it is something we're looking at with vendors right now, and I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. There'll be future conversations with Matt and the rest of the village staff once we kind of get an idea of costs and what that looks like. So there isn't a shock, because these things are not usually, unfortunately. Any questions about any of that stuff?
Any questions? No, thank you.
You bet.
Have a good night. All right. Page 2. Manager Isaac.
Nominate President Blackmer, my report is printed in the packet. I don't have anything to verbally add unless there are questions or comments.
Trustee Lancaster.
Thank you. One question. Where are we with knowing truly with our total fund balances? What goes to what? What's available, what's been tough with projects?
When the auditor presents in June, that's when we'll have our final numbers on it.
So by June for sure, because that's gonna be important as we have some of these other discussions to know what we really have and don't have, so.
Yep, absolutely.
Any other questions, Manager Heiser? No, okay.
Thank you.
Excellent, Chad.
So I don't have anything further than what's in the packet, but I will direct your attention to the listing of outstanding projects, so you can see where we are with the number of projects that are going on in the village, and we're going to be addressed at tonight's meeting. And then there's also a marketing to ensure that Kristen reference in her presentation that's in the packet as well, and staff will be pushing that out to the public and start generating some development leads on that stuff.
Any questions? Trustee Lancaster.
One very quick comment. Thank you for the summary of projects. That's very helpful and over. Thanks for thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No, very good. All right, we are up to Parks and Trails. Then Chad.
There's nothing else to report. There's a summary of where we are at with everything. You will have seen earlier this week, the playground equipment that Thomas Field was installed, and we shared some videos yesterday on social media. The trail at Culver Ridge is in the bidding package, we'll talk about later. There's some discussion on lighting at Dartmouth Park, and then we met with the Harrison Athletic Complex, and we're working on a joint agreement between them and us, similar to what we had with the River of Surge for Orange Field. So it's documented as to who's doing each task, so hopefully that'll come back.
Mark?
Yes, I have a question, reference to Darwoy Community Park. I spoke to Jeff Funk, a month and a half ago about the dead ash trees we got going on in the woods there, 38–40% of them. And at that time, DPW was finishing up at the Redwood woods there. Looks like they've been done with that for 33 weeks. So what's an update on the projected time that the dead and downed trees are going to be starting to clean out of Darwoy Community Park? There's been a lot of kids lately pushing them over for fun, and where someone's going to get hurt. So I'm kind of curious what your time frame is with Jeff and working on that process.
I don't know the time frame. I know it was the next one on his list, but I will make sure that it gets addressed and that they get in there as soon as they can.
Yeah, maybe I think safety is number one. And like I said, I live really close to there, and I walk that trail around the woods there almost every day. And several times in the last several weeks, there's been multiple kids building forts, but now they're into pushing trees down and getting a big kick out of it. And if one tree falls on someone, we're gonna have it. So I'm just trying to be proactive here versus reactive.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Get on speaking.
Any other comments? Trustee Lancaster.
Thank you. As President Horn, follow along the Colorado streets. I did notice that the city of Appleton, which does have a fairly substantial forestry department of their own, ended up hiring a private contractor to help them because they had so many ash trees. So if it's a matter of not being able to get to them, I would certainly recommend bringing looking at possibly you need to ask for some funds from the board for us to support between that situation, taking care of it in a manner.
Okay, so good.
I do got one more. In respect to the ash trees, I know Kerwood, when they cut down their trees, they put it up for bid for the fire. There's a lot of wood in there, like doing woods. So have we explored options of selling that wood? and then making revenue off that, because other communities are doing that currently.
I don't know that we have, but I think it's good information, and we'll, that's what we're in here to.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Sonik is the forester for the city of Appleton, if you get contacted as far as knowing, what they're doing, he does live in Harrison as well, so.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on. Okay, Public Works. So that's. Haley, are you filling in for Jeff tonight?
I think it's. I can take it for that. Basically, so with the retirement of Jeff Wisnick, we brought on Ross Whitstein, who is from Hilton, and he's joined us as of April 15th, and that's all working out very well. There's a number of other projects that the group has been working on, primarily with drainage issues and code enforcement. We've got some program water going in the Weston Homes subdivision, so we've been working on that improvements and getting roads going, and then starting to work on the capital improvement stuff, so. It's been busy and converting over from winter to spring and getting going on everything that's it.
Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on. Harrison Utilities, Brandon.
Thank you, Madam President. The report is included in the packet. One item to note under number 2 of the PSC annual report that was filed and accepted by the Public Service Commission on Monday. So,
Okay, very good.
this is completed with help from input from staff, including Donna, the accountant, working with CLA as well to sync up the information with the audits. As you is aware, the audit's been trailing a bit behind, and reports rely on information going back and forth. So it's a good step of progress to get these items synced.
Good. Any questions or comments? Okay, very good, thank you. All right. Vicky,
My reports are there if you have questions.
any questions on the bills and claims?
This would be the summary and reports report. Bills and claims tonight.
The court report, well. And. Trustful. Trustee Lancaster.
Thank you, Madam President. Question from the clerk or perhaps Manager Hager, both of you. Where are we with rent foundations? I understand you guys are going to use department heads and bring references for how to spend remaining ARPA funds. Just wondering where we are with that.
We have the list. We're about $15,000 over what we have left, so it needs to get narrowed down. But yeah, our wish list is a little bit longer than what we have left.
I'm only one board member, but I would like to see that into May if possible, so we can put this money to use. So
Who's gonna come this week?
there's a lot here. Anyway. Yeah.
It is ready.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, now we're up to bills and claims. What is your pleasure? Is there a motion to approve the bill? I'll make the motion to approve the bills and claims. Motion by Darlene,
I'll second it.
second by trustee Brantmeyer.
Before we go to discussion here.
Okay, trustee Lancaster.
Just wanna, thank you, just wanna call out on page 20, label 25, come forward in the accounting, but label 25 in the bottom right-hand corner. That there's about $750,000 going back to the apartment developers in the village, so. I'll call that out, a lot of money going back.
That is part of the tax increment district. That's money that it would have paid
I know
us.
how it comes and it comes out, but
Okay.
it's still money
Just
that.
that you know that I don't want anyone to think that it's coming out of the regular taxpayers'
It's
dollars.
taxes that are paid into the TID, and it's paid back out of the TID, so it is
Right.
money going back to these developers of these apartments, so just a lot of money. I know Pat Ford did it, but I'm just calling it out, so.
But it's all legal and we're required to give them that money. So for people who don't understand TIDs, I want you to understand there's no funny business going on. It's legal and those developers are owed that money. So let's keep that straight. All right.
Well, but not very good planning.
Well,
But
It is the way the TID works and it's legal, so let's not give the public the wrong impression. You have a motion and a second to approve the bills and claims. Are you prepared to vote your ballot? All right, vote your ballot.
I vote yes.
And let the record show that the motion is carried with 1 nay. Trustee Lancaster. Very good. All right, we are moving on. Fire Commission. And the board needs to appoint a member to the Fire Commission. In the background, Kevin Rowland's term ends April 30th, 2024. He's volunteered for another 5-year term, if so desired. What is your pleasure? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve Kevin, and fire committee on the fire commission with the term expiring in 2029. I'll second it.
Motion by Scott, second by Mark. Any discussion? What's your ballot?
I vote aye.
Thank you. And let the record show, there's 2 abstentions because you're fireman, no problem, no problem. And the motion is carried, with the approved abstains. All right, very good. Okay, we're up to zoning board of appeals. We are looking to add, fill a vacancy, moving Kelly Wenzel from the alternate seat 2 to the member seat for the term expiring April 30th, 2027, and appointing Michael, I'll probably butcher his name, Linsmeyer, to fill the alternate 2 seat expiring on April 30th, 2026 on the zoning board of zoning appeals. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve moving Kelly Wenzel from alternate 2 seat to a member seat for the term expiring April 30th, 2027, and appointing Michael Linsmeyer to fill alternate 2 seat expiring on April 30, 2026 on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second by Darlene. Any discussion? Vote your ballot.
I vote aye.
Record show the motion is carried unanimously. There is no old business. This is unusual, it's all new business. So we are moving on to item A. Approval of the Economic Development Strategic Plan for Redevelopment Resources that was presented. Is there a motion to approve the plan?
We have a motion to approve the economic development strategic plan by redevelopment resources, circle.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Darlene. Any discussion? Trustee Lancaster?
Just one comment, just I do think we're getting careful with residential. Like you understand, residential helps one other business to be here, but before we're going to keep adding more residential, we need to solve some of these public safety and DPW issues because there's not room for equipment and we can't just keep adding people that we can't offer service for these. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Vote your ballot.
I vote aye.
Record show the motion has carried unanimously to accept the report. Very good. All right. Conditional use permit request by Crossroad Development LLC, parcels 40-386 and parcel 40-387, Highway 55. Should the village board approve conditional use permit to permit the applicant to operate a topsoil screening operation, resource extraction? Chad, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, that this matter came before the planning commission. The planning commission recommended this matter to the village board with 2 changes to the conditions. The first change was to add a condition number 8 that prohibits off-site material coming onto the site for processing, and then condition number 9, which is any violation of the above stated condition shall result in termination of the conditional use permit. So the planning commission did hear public testimony on this, and there were folks for and against it. Staff is recommending approval. It had been approved in the previous year. We've received no complaints, and so we were supporting the request this year.
And then, Brett, I think. You guys just gonna consolidate and just have one person talk?
I might have to rely on Matt, but you sending me up here, so.
All right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rob Bellin. I'm the attorney for Gene Frederickson, and his company is this on? Is it on now? No. That's, this is, I'm a band, but I don't sing.
There
They
you
don't
go.
give me a mic for a reason.
You can turn that so you don't have to feel how there, that's a little better.
So rather than give you a 2-hour dissertation on CUP law, I figure I might as well just get right to the point. I wasn't here for the planning commission meeting, so I'm not exactly sure what happened. I heard some of it. I guess my understanding is people had complaints, but it was just preferences. There was no evidence of any violations under the CUP last year. So obviously, we're hoping that you guys will approve the conditional use permit. However, just to get to the point, I'm thinking that if there can be some minor changes or a little bit more leniency on the conditions, this could be the last time any of us have to deal with this issue, because this would be the last year. If it runs through sometime in November and Gene Frederickson agrees that he will, do it for this year and then clear any piles that are left at the end of the year, that would be it. He's been trying to get that corner at, 55 in Calumet, economically developed for like 25 years, maybe more, at least as long as I've known him. He wants that to get developed. He doesn't want to be a burden. He doesn't want to hold that up, but he's got those big piles there. So if let me just get right to the conditions. On the conditions
Well,
with,
We had actually asked him that question, if it was, or his representative, if it was gonna be done in a year. And then it got real wishy-washy. I think the planning commission would have probably made a different decision had we known Gene's intent was to remove the pile within a year.
that's what I was thinking. Why not swap out a condition? If Mr. Gale, Matt, who talked to you guys last week, he went through and got Weather Underground and looked at all the wind speeds and stuff. I don't even think there's any evidence that the wind speed should be a condition, because there's no evidence that there's been any problem with the dust. So it might not even be reasonable.
I'm gonna stop you right there. We had staff out there the day we had complaints.
Okay, but that was when after the permit had expired.
That
right?
was this year, the week before the
Right.
King Day. Get the,
And that was a mistake, as you guys, there's no excuse for that. They started 2 weeks early. They shouldn't have done it.
so just so when you're talking about wind speeds, I mean, we had staff there and they verified this.
I talked to Chad about that. I think it was the next day. And that was a mistake, but my understanding is last year there was no evidence of any dust or wind problem or anything. But I haven't seen any evidence. Nothing's been presented when I showed up at the meetings last year, but whatever. Here's what we're thinking. Because they're only like predicted 23 days or something between like May and November, where they might not have wet weather and winds under 10 miles an hour. And they're like, how are we going to get this done? Because this is an economic issue. The village has purchased dirt from out there. And so they need buyers, they need to refine the dirt. So what we're thinking is, if you take the wind speed to 15, they agree to have a wind speed measuring device out there every day. And they're also going to use apps on their phones. So if you take the wind speed to 15, allow them to bring in no other resources being extracted, so no soils, but only the materials that they need to refine and process, which I think Matt might have talked about this last week. They've got sand on the property. They might need a little more sand and some like peat moss. That's it. But the condition could just say no outside soil. They don't want to build bigger piles. They want to get rid of it. And then if the condition is he's got to clear all the piles at the end of the year, it should, at least it's a good faith effort on his part. And there should be then hopefully maybe everybody who's tired of dealing with this issue could say, this is it. In November, we're done with it.
Well, if you guys had said that last week, I think it would have been a different decision on the board. Okay. Um,
But he wasn't there.
well, no,
I know, I apologize.
And I don't understand why, they're gonna bring additional outside material to be able to complete the.
okay, they weren't talking about ending in a year, they were talking about extending for several years, so that was the point. But,
I'm talking about limiting offsite material come in, they need additional piece in that additional sand. That's required in the pulverization process, so right now we can.
so you can make a motion to amend the conditions. Based on the consideration that Gene is going to, that pile moved in a year, we moved at the end of this year, right, Gene?
Just making sure.
So you can make a motion to amend the conditions for, item 8 to allow the sand and the peat moss. Okay,
And compost, please.
on compost, sand, peat moss and compost. And you can also make that motion to amend the wind speed from 10 to 15. And that's what you're asking for, right?
That's what I'm asking for, and you saw Dean nod to me, it should be on video, he's gonna get those piles off.
And it's on video that will be done this year, right, Gene?
In November, if we're not done, I'll follow the rest out of there.
Okay, we'll go celebrate that. So,
If we can work on here, that's one thing, but Matt really did the research on the wind speeds and everything, and when you take the rain and the wind speeds and everything. We can't believe we're not even a month to work on here.
all right, we're gonna,
In the course of a construction season. It's like 3 days a month is all there really is in 2023, which was historically a dry season, correct? We were experiencing drought type conditions in the later half of the year. So if you look back historically at last year, if there was only really 3 days a month that were allowable per the conditions that were provided, you can understand that that pile can't disappear in a year's time if we stick to those conditions. Numerous things have to fall into place. Number one, economic conditions. Number two, there has to be buyers. Number three, weather. And the permitting process is just the start of all of this.
okay, I think Mark is ready to make an amendment.
just have one quick clarification.
All right, Scott first.
So I think for number 8, we say prohibit off-site soil, is that what we want to?
That's fine.
Replace material with soil?
That's fine, right?
No.
But we're not gonna we wouldn't bring any more soil in there, when we applied for stockpiling before. We wouldn't, or permit, we wouldn't bring any more in there, but to make garden mixes and.
I'm just trying to help out the guy who's gonna make the decision. Do we just strip out number 8 completely, or do we actually, I guess I'm asking for guys for the board,
No additional topsoil.
okay, so. Prohibited off-site topsoil is better term. Okay.
We do need some sand in there, small amounts, a little bit of peat moss, a little bit of. Stone.
Prohibited new off-site topsoil.
Right.
Okay.
Can I mention that these are the rules I would withdraw my complaint if it could be done at the end of the year?
Okay, there you go.
And you would have done that last week if we had known, right? Right. Trustee Lancaster.
You can all blame me.
So if you're being, I guess I would like to have another condition added saying that whatever pile is still there at the end of the year, that it will be removed off the site, just so that everybody's it's memorialized in writing what we're all talking about.
I don't think we can tell them to remove the pile.
You don't, after November 14th, though, well, there's a pile left, you gotta let the dump trucks put it out of there.
Well, by December 31st or something of 2024.
He's already agreed he's not doing this beyond this year. So what he does, whatever stuff is on there, that's his business, right?
Well, that should be a term of approval of us approving this, because always we can be the whole next year, we can be back here all over again.
We won't. Because we won't approve
Okay, we
it.
have a question back, sir.
Like this gentleman said in front of me, that if the soil ain't sold, if it rains and
No,
whatever.
that all goes away. Gene just said it doesn't
At
matter.
the end of the year.
It's gone. It doesn't
Like
matter.
December 31st, we will have whatever pile's left, because of whatever reason, we won't remove it.
Come hell or high water.
All right, just let you know that
All right.
it's recorded now.
All right,
If you wanna make it.
so Mark, would you like a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve conditional use permit Crossroads Development LLC. Parcels 40386 and 40378 Highway 55. With staff's recommendations and with the change to number 8. Allowing the use of sand, peat moss and compost. To the site to complete his pulverization process. And avoiding additional soil brought in.
And to increase the wind speed.
And also increasing the wind speed to 15 miles per hour. So he can fully complete this project by year's end. As printed and circulated.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Second by trustee Hanschul. Any further discussion?
I don't know, maybe this would require, Attorney Micheletti to jump in if I feel you're standing in for Andy tonight. Yeah, I don't know about the compliance addition, because generally under the zoning, it's gotta be substantial compliance. I didn't see the actual language that any violation, so like if there was some pulverizing going on and the wind speed shot up to 16 miles an hour, I don't think legally that would be a basis to suspend. But I heard a condition that said any violation at all would suspend operations, and I wasn't sure what that meant. You know, just because, then what happens if they gotta suspend and then they have to come back and ask to restart, or I wasn't sure what that meant, and I don't know if you looked at that at all.
I did not. Okay. Would be problem, right? There should be substantial violation or.
Should it say a substantial or material violation or something like that?
Okay, well then we need to amend the motion.
Well, let's talk about that. So, I mean, what other recourse then if you guys are pulverizing on Saturday mornings for 2-3 hours, right? It says you're not.
That'd be a substantial violation.
Okay, so that's a clear understanding of the substantial. Okay, all right. So
Okay, one question back.
So are you gonna let them pulverize on the weekend?
No,
no, it was just an example.
that was an example and that would be a substantial violation of the permit.
So as long as you lawyers can understand and know the difference between substantial and non-substantial, I guess.
Purpose of it is so you don't get. Arguments over 1 mile an hour and someone's phone says it's 15 and someone says it's 16 and you're fighting over.
So is it your recommendation we take out
Already
number
have
9?
substantial and material.
Okay, so any substantial violation?
Mhm.
Okay.
So
So
do we
I will
need to-
make the amendments then to,
Mark, doesn't he?
anybody can amend the motion.
All right.
I'm gonna make an amendment to Mark's motion, to change number 9 to any substantial violation. So then we need a second and then vote on the amendment.
Second by Mike. Okay, there's one more comment, Andy.
I mean, they're already increasing the wind speed. I mean, by substantial violation, I think it's the door open to just, if there's no cut and dry figures of what we decide, when it's like a car. It kind of leaves the door open for like, well, it's a wish-washy thing, instead of being more precise on.
Well, he's gonna be out of there this year,
Granted, but it's
last year.
30-mile-an-hour crosswind.
Well, that's a substantial.
I would agree,
substantial.
that'd be substantial.
Working on the weekends is substantial. Working in the middle of the night is substantial. Okay? Okay? And Jean's gonna want this over with too, right, Jean? All right, so we have a motion and a second on the amendment to the motion. You prepared to vote your ballot? Vote your ballot. Julian?
I'll vote aye.
The record showed the amendment to the motion has carried unanimously. Now we have the original motion to approve conditional use permit. Prepared to vote your ballot?
I'll second, I
Yes,
second
well-
it.
Yeah, just second it. All right,
Before we go, I have a question.
Yeah, I thought Darlene.
Oh, you can.
I thought I did.
Nope.
Yeah, I think Darlene said.
Perfectly fine. I'm not gonna debate that.
Who's
It's
doing?
not substantial.
So we have a deadline here in November. And Gene has specified he might need till December to haul, end of the year to haul the dirt away. If hauling activities also require conditional use permit or anything, where do we need to amend this date to push this date to allow him to be able to haul it off by here?
No, I don't think so. I think if he's done shredding by the date that's in here, and then he has until the end of the year to haul it off, that's fine.
November 14th would be the cutoff date for shredding, right?
That's it.
You give me till the end of the year, if there's a pile out there, we can truck it out.
So we're good. Are you prepared to vote ballot? Julie?
Aye.
The record show the motion is carried unanimously. And we're all gonna celebrate on December 31st, right?
You don't wanna see me ever again.
Unless
You
you-
want to bring your friend then? Yeah.
All right, good. That's good. Thank you. All right. We've been at this for a couple hours. We want to take a quick recess, a 10-minute break. Are we ready to take a 10-minute break, guys? Is there a motion to take a recess?
Yeah, motion to take a whole 10-minute break. Before we do that, we'll get the 2 more items, because I know we have someone in the audience waiting, and then we'll take a break.
Pickleball?
Yes. And we'll get to the next 2 items, that's a big break.
All right.
Draw my motion.
Okay, so draw. So next is the contract with the band to assist our staff in creating a master plan. And guidelines for county end. So the information's in your packet. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve this.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mike, it's good. Second by Mike. Which ballot?
I vote aye.
Let the record show the motion is carried unanimously. All right. Okay, we've been here a long time. Which we kind of like, sign that's on the back. Did you guys take a look at these signs? For. Right. So basically, you come in and do, you put your cattle in a pile and when the group in front of you is done with their game, they have to get off, and then the next 4 paddles go in, right?
Do you want to speak first? Because I got several handouts for everyone.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, who wants to talk then? Matt, do you want to call?
We would prefer for Matt to speak after the decision, or excuse me, Brett.
I was gonna say you want to talk before the decision. So come on up.
But okay, but not yet, correct.
Brett, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna just go find it. Hopefully I didn't miss the handouts also.
I think you're meeting. Very suggestive, right? So everything you need to campus.
Sure.
My name is Brett Jansen. I live at N8938 Lilac Road, Manatee, Wisconsin. I'm a resident of Harrison for the past 2 years. I've been a doctor of physical therapy for 6 years now. Part of my education is in community health, which is why I'm passionate about this silly game called pickleball, just because I see the benefits of it and from a community health standpoint in terms of getting people engaged, interacting in an outdoor sport, meeting new people. And Julie's really been a pioneer in terms of providing organized play, fair play for all through ladder leagues, open play, teaching beginner lessons. I'm somebody who, passionate about healthcare. Our whole healthcare system's overwhelmed, and I, like you, with a lot of things, want to be more proactive than reactive. So if we can kind of have rules in place that gets more people engaged, more people talking. We've had issues last year at Darboy Community Park with the first come and first serve rules, where other people are coming on. We're not able to come onto the court because people are staying there the whole time. Or other popular parks for pickleball, like Tallulah Park or other area parks, do this pile stacking method, which I think what President Blackmer was talking about. It's, the new signage would allow people to get into the game and stack their paddles, more people are coming in, that way everyone can interact and be engaged in the fastest growing sport in America, and I think we have a great opportunity at Dartmouth Community Park to really foster this growing sport. Any questions?
Thank you. I think Mark, you've given us two handouts. there.
Yes,
Pretty severe.
yes, well, I live by the pickleball courts and I've been, talking to pickleball players there for the last several months, including, in the last couple days after this came to the board's attention for this meeting. And I want to give feedback here. This is a group of 10 players that live within 3 to 4 or 5 blocks of the courts. And the group feedback I got from them is Darby Community Park should remain first play until players give up the court. Leagues should not be allowed to use up our resources. If we let them, even through the Tuesday League last year, be curious, they did try to bully us off the court because there was league play and they wanted priority. So I've heard several offenses from clubs, people complaining about the clubs and the issues with clubs. Number 3, examples given by staff here. They really didn't do a good job where they gave examples of clubs from California, New York, Germantown, and racquetball clubs. These are paid clubs. We have a Darby Community Park. We cannot have staff. Okay, whatever. Yeah, but like I said, these are paid clubs.
They're public court.
Yeah, but I'm saying
Okay.
these are a lot larger communities. Let me finish.
Yeah, let Mark finish.
You got to talk and I get the floor.
Okay, I'm stopping.
Okay.
Stop.
So, our courts are too new with this much organization. It would take away from the community use and beginner play, including our semi-organized group. So on the way here this evening, the courts were full. I mean, the courts are full all the time now. People are getting very excited. So too much dictation by rules by the village will likely cause specialist village resources to be used managing reservations and policing violators. Signage should target first come, first served play, as rules include statements of courtesy, welcoming others to direction, and those holding the court mainly play level. We discourage all league play, as we have a beautiful neighborhood and resource with our tax dollars, that other communities should be able to use our tax resources like this at peak times after work and evenings. So based upon all the feedback I got in the last month and the group I met with here over the weekend, they came up with 8 very simple guidelines that will make it very easy for staff, along with be very user friendly to the Dartmouth Community Park. They are as follows. Number 1, no league or club play allowed. Courts available on a first come, first served basis. No court reservations allowed. When courts are full use, common courtesy, invite others to rotate in. Proper attire, no black sole shoes. No food or beverage on court except water. No pets allowed on the courts. No skateboards, rollboards, etc. So this is just plain and simple. And like I said, when the problem with clubs is that a lot of these clubs are over 100 members and they're getting larger. So they tend to come in and control the court and bully people. And that's the last thing we want in Darby Community Park. Go ahead, Scott.
So I believe we went through this with CASA, them being a private club. And we had said, if you want to, as a private club, reserve time at Darby Community Park, you had to apply for a permit, have liability insurance and structure and payment, and work out a deal with our DPW as far as moving equipment around, and we had to put it, so I don't believe that a pickleball club is no different than CASA. So I'm sorry, but I don't think our courts should be for a private club unless the private club fills out the proper paperwork, gets it in front of staff, the staff then can then do it or whatever, and then bring it for the board for approval. That should be the proper process. So I'm for the no league or club play. I would not say never ever, but I would say if a private club wants to utilize they need to be like the Kiwanis Club or the Boy Scouts or the Festival of Lights, fill out an application, schedule the time with staff so then staff can review it and make recommendations, either approve it or bring it to the board for us to discuss. So that's what I'll say about that.
Okay, I'm gonna step in here because I do play pickleball. And I've been to many different courts in many different areas, and everyone has always had the paddle etiquette. Where you put your paddle down and no one asks if you're in the league, no one asks if you're in a special club. You just put your paddle in. And it doesn't matter where I'm in that queue. I have played with league people, I have played with beginners, I've played with pros, I've played with people who fall on the court a lot. Because you just march your paddle forward. And it doesn't mean that the league is gonna take over the courts. If you use the paddle system, then first timers and everybody else, I mean, you got the rack. If people wanna play in a group of four, you've got four there. Well, then the next people put in their paddles, and first timers or whoever comes in, you put your paddle. When the game is done, it only goes to 11. This is how it's done just about everywhere. Oh, I'm still talking. You guys,
Have you played at Darby Park?
you guys.
Do you live
yes,
over by Darby? Park?
I have played
Have
it.
you played there?
I have played it
Okay.
before. I have
I'd like to
played.
read when you're done speaking.
Okay.
I like, just we're all taking turns. I'd like to speak next
So-
when you're finished, please.
Okay, so all I'm saying is that this is a normal way to do it, and everybody gets to play. Everybody gets to rotate in. You don't get excluded because your paddle's there and no one kicks your paddle out of the tire. Okay, yes, ma'am.
I'm a Village of Harrison resident and I bicycle down, I live on Strawflower. I bicycle down to the park and I play quite often. However, twice already this year, the courts were full. And I sat and I waited to play. There was no paddle stacking going on. I waited for about 25 minutes, got back on my bike, went a block and a half away, got in my car, went over to Tallulah, where they paddle stack. I got to play. So I believe in paddle stacking, it's etiquette. It's like kids in a sandbox. If the sandbox is full and there are a few toys, the kids share the toys. And sharing is just part of pickleball etiquette.
Okay, trustee Lancaster has to speak next.
So I do have concerns with us giving special privileges to a league or club. We need to make sure we're treating all organizations fairly. We make they're not costs anymore, their name, I believe it is now. We make River Surge go through a process of approval with the village with a number of terms and conditions. It's communicated out to the public, so the public knows that River Surge plays out there, and we always post the schedule on the website. If we haven't done that yet for the spring, we need to make sure we do that, by the way. But we post that stuff out for the public, so they know when the field might be being in use at the park that way, so it helps with the club versus private taxpayers. Avoid some of those conflicts. The Fox Cities Festival of Lights, we require them to fill out an application to reserve the park, and we make it known when they're having the park. The Kiwanis Club of Darway, who we partner with, fills out paperwork, applications, agrees on dates with village staff, and that's all communicated. When the Boy Scouts want to do things at the park, they're filling out applications and they're coordinating dates. If a league wants to play on a Tuesday night, for example, at Darway Community Park, I don't have an issue with that if policies and procedures are followed. Where we're treating them the same as any other organization that wants to use our facilities. And then also that can be then communicated out to the public, so that they know that, hey, on Tuesday night, this league's down there playing, or whatever night it might be that's agreed upon. I also do live close to this park. There's lots of high school kids and other young adults, for example, they go here to play. I don't believe that they should go down there and be able to play one game, and then because the league decides to show up, that's all they get to play that evening or during that day. That's not fair. Do we have a sign-up sheet for the swing set? I guess that's where I have a problem as to where the starts and stops. Do we have a sign-up sheet for the jungle gym at the park? If a kid's crossed the jungle gym 3 or 4 times, he's gotta give the jungle gym up, let our kid go across the jungle gym? Or did someone swing on the swing set for too many minutes? No, that's not how it works. We also have one small, and I wanna stress this, I wish we had more, they're expensive. You know, if you get some grant funding, it'd be great to have more somewhere. But we have one small pickleball facility in our community for residents, and we need to make sure that we are letting people that come down there to play. We have events, we have things that people can let people rotate in. Village staff should be having to manage all this, try to get into all this stuff, it just gets. We gotta treat people the same, so.
Okay, now
I'm actually gonna make a motion.
Thing to say.
It's my turn.
Before I make it. Marty, and then I want to speak after.
Who is gonna manage the placement of the rackets on the court?
No,
And there's so many beginners in our area. Staff, there's all kinds of problems with that, Allison. This is a brand new facility. Let's reevaluate this after a year or two. But right now, we need to stick to the basics. So it doesn't tie up staff with reservations and, oh, he did this and she did that. Otherwise, it's gonna be at the board every month. I do not want that hassle, right? This is plain and simple, straightforward, and it's the most user-friendly one that's available versus putting brackets there. All the beginners are gonna know the etiquette if they don't even know that, and they're gonna brackets on different courts and stuff like that. There's no one there, there's no referee, there's no judge, jury here, so we have to be very cautious about restricting this and adding additional restrictions at the time. That's why I talked to a ton of people on this and put this together, because this is the most user-friendly thing at that park to start with. And yeah, maybe after 1 year we can amend this, and then based upon what we learned in the first year, but this is a good first step. That's all I'm saying.
okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I'm gonna play worst case scenario. By first come, first served policy. Where we don't check IDs and we don't check who's a village resident. Anybody from any place can come and monopolize those courts all day and never leave. Because you're not requesting an ID, you're not requiring proof of residency. You, with this policy, first come, first served, you have zero control. You have no way to ensure Harrison people are gonna use those courts. But if you use the standard pickleball etiquette, where everybody puts their paddle in, your paddle doesn't say whether you're a Harrison resident or a league, you're just in order. The worst case scenario, right now, there is nothing stopping a league from coming in and occupying all those courts every day, all day long.
That's what we have. No legal equivalent, number one.
How are you gonna do it? You're gonna go down there and check everybody's ID?
You're getting a lot of hypothetical stuff.
I'm just saying, there,
Well, who's gonna look at everyone's ID?
I'm just saying, if you use the standard pickleball etiquette,
You have.
then you put your paddle in and everyone gets a turn.
So in this one example here, it says no singles, private group play, practice or instruction when people are waiting unless scheduled through the city of Winter Garden Recreation.
It's just
The
examples.
paddle queue system is in effect, which, okay, I could put it for number 2, it could be the paddle queue system is in effect, okay, that's fine. When the game is complete, the winners remain on the court and split. I guess games are intended to be to 11, I guess.
If you look at the one that's on the back, this is the one that most closely follows what people actually do. Okay? You have good sport, you know, you put your paddle in the rack or in the pile. And everyone gets a turn. No one takes your paddle out of the stack. Everyone gets a turn. But the other way, if it's first come, first serve, then you can have league people from out of town come and occupy those courts continuously.
So you read the bottom part of this. sign and
We
follow.
can write whatever we want.
It says pickleball courts are open for first come, first serve.
Yes, also. That's, yeah, that's what my group actually recommended. They actually recommended most of the last page. First come, first served.
And in the rotation, you use the paddles. I mean, if the first come, first serve, but then you use the paddle rotation to bring in everybody. I mean, hey, you know, I go to Lake Park Swim Fitness. They have pickleball courts there. You have to use the Darboy Club, okay? But even at Lake Park, we use the paddle
Paying
system.
for that, yeah, the difference when it's a paid service, so that's,
But
so that's
so-
where.
But even so, you know, if you guys decide that you want first come, first serve, it will not fix the problem of people not getting out.
I think it's gonna fix a lot of problems. I've been talking to all the people who've been playing there. Also, I live there. I live there. I've been living there for 24 years. I talk to these people every day. This is the most simplistic thing for the staff to do. Yeah. So I've done my homework on this, Al.
Julie, well, wait,
Make it clear that Fox Cities Pickleball is not a private club. It was started by me 5 years ago with 20 people from the community that started getting together weekly to play. And it grew and grew and grew. And now we have, I don't know how many there will be this year, but well over 100 players. It's a great system. Anybody can join. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. There's no park department that has a paid salary person running it. And I also want to question that the chart that you read, those 8 things, I think it was about number 5. I can't remember the wording now, but you said when the courts are full, was that at all? Can you read that statement again?
When the courts are full, use common courtesy, invite others to rotate in.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
No,
And there's no place that I ever have played pickleball that don't do that. When courts are full, you share.
but that's the difference here, and this is where, so this came before this board last year. I don't have the exact date offhand, I should look it up before this meeting.
that's okay. It was denied. It was,
This came before this board last year, and we said we wanted them to be first come, first served. I have heard 0 complaints from anybody except from this club. And so. And that number 5 is very important. When the courts are full, use common courtesy. Of course, people should always be courteous to each other, and I would hope they would be, just like if a kid's on swing set for an hour, and another kid wants to come swing, I hope those 2 kids would share with each other. I'm hoping parents are bringing their kids up that way, and I hope as adults, that adults can share and be that way. We shouldn't need extra things there to hang paddles to dictate that, so I am gonna make a motion.
one more.
No, I wanna make a motion, and you people can debate after, I have the right to make a motion.
She wanted it.
I'm going to go with the staff, and I also have to listen to our staff, and this is what I wanna call out here. In our memo, staff recommends not trying to regulate the use of the courts due to inability to enforce the requested etiquette rules. So that is my motion, as printed and circulated from the staff recommendation, that we are not going to put up signage and try to regulate the use of the courts.
Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? No second on the motion, then the motion fails.
We gotta put something out there.
I like to make a motion.
Well, that's, okay, go ahead, make a motion.
I would like to make the motion based upon the feedback I got from many people, including the 5 I got on this phone call coming in here today. That we do the 8 steps that I've worked on for the last several months, and the feedback I got from my people, this is a starting point. We can always change it down the road, but we need signage out there to define things, otherwise it's gonna be wild west out here.
Okay, you've just flip-flopped 3 different ways, so the signage is gonna say what, your motion?
Signage is on any things that I have on the site.
Okay, but so your motion is to keep the courts first come, first served,
That's
period.
I think trustee,
It's
he
number 2.
wants this sign, I mean, as village staff, we need to make it pretty, obviously, but I think what Van Hefty's saying is he wants a sign posted that reads this.
Yes.
Which I
that's
guess
correct.
my one question would be, would you be willing to amend this with a comma behind number one without village staff approval? Because I do still think there is a staff approval process if a league wants to come
That's fine.
play, and that's how we treat everybody else. So that way we're treating everybody
That's fine. That's fine.
so we're not saying no, they just have to get staff approval.
So that. That,
You guys manage that and you bring that to the board as you guys see fit, as far as that.
That
goes.
later.
so if you do that, I think this last page is pretty much the same thing, except for. I don't mind adding the placing the paddles in the designated area, I mean. You know, if that's what pickleballers use. Then I'm fine with it, because this sign says everything that this sign says. Pretty much, right?
Yeah, so.
I'm just saying,
Well,
look at these.
Scott, I mean, my group, they actually recommend this in red. They said the middle area was just a little bit maybe too advanced at this time, but they didn't have enough. This is actually good.
Well, except for number two, this is the one I cannot support this one completely.
Oh.
Because number two says, when a game is complete, the next group of paddles move on to the court. That is not first come, first serve. That means someone plays a game and if there's people waiting, they're kicked off and they have to wait until who knows when to get back on the court again. But
Okay, so,
that's-
so you guys have. Look,
Can you withdraw your motion? I'll make the motion that we go with this sign right here. I think that was what Allison had first said.
What about number two though? Like, that's not first come, first serve then. That's contradictory.
If the sign's still on here,
No, but first number, number two needs to be removed then from there and then it would work. Because number two is not first come, first serve. Because number two is, as soon as one game is complete, the next group of paddles move on.
But that means that everybody gets to share.
Serve, I think it's just.
But they can play,
That's how I'm
but then you're
reading it.
kicking, you could
Okay,
potentially kicking high school kids off a court after they play one game. I have a
Okay,
problem with that.
Julie has a comment. Julie? No, we can't hear you.
Yourself, Julie.
Turn your mic on, Julie. Your mic is off. Your mic is off. You've been
Okay,
sitting here all this time.
I agree with leaving point number two in that in our recommendation, because otherwise somebody could just monopolize that court and do the same thing that we're afraid of, is just someone stays in that there's no sharing. So I will support this last document that we have here, but I do want to leave number two in.
Yes, we have to take out rec department leads.
Yes, yes,
Concerned about them, but
yes.
you know, it's a sad day in Harrison. We're debating here for 25 minutes on pickleball. That how is society, that's why society's so screwed up.
Okay, so do we have a motion? Is there a motion to approve?
Well, Mark's got a note on what are we gonna do about the no league or club play? That's a big issue right now. Well,
We're not club. There is many other groups of 30 or 40 people that go, the same groups that go to the court, I can tell you. They
well,
go
you're a league.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday morning,
That's a linear club.
the same group of people. And they share it.
Private or public club is.
They're a group of people. They have a Facebook page.
Some group is considered a club.
They just don't not keep score and they're not in a ladder where you play who's most competitive with you.
But then you're the reason why your club is, reason why we're getting all these complaints, because your club is hogging up the pickleball.
We play 1.5 hours, one night a week.
Yeah, but we're getting bullying comments from your club.
This is the
We are,
reason why we're here.
multiple people are complaining about your club because one or two of your members are bullying people.
All right. Hey, let's stop the attacks. Okay, we have all danced around this issue. Now I think trustee Landmaster had a good point. Which one did you want to add that to about, if they're gonna do, if it's gonna be a league that you want to.
Well, I just think that if it's going to be it was originally trustee Van Hefty's list here, but I just think there should be something here. If it's a group, if it's an organized group. They need approval of village staff like we treat everybody else. And then it can be know what night they play, it can be put on the Facebook page and all that. So if there's a high school student walking down there, whatever different things, we can publicize things so then people know.
And
He signed up on them.
Vicky, don't go there right now. Told you twice. But But are you also gonna also include the stacking of pallets so that people want to come in?
If that's.
I guess I'm okay, I will compromise on this because I'm trying to look out for, I think, the best interest of Harrison overall, and I think. Representing the best interest of Harrison completely, I'm okay with stacking the pallets, if there's a clause here, then any group of people that wanna have organized time to play like this needs to get approval from staff.
And I don't have a problem with that either. So do you want to make that motion?
Well, first off, Mark's got one on.
Mark's
Mark's got on the floor, yes.
But Mark's wasn't seconded,
It was, unless you withdrew it, you seconded it.
because
I did not.
you,
I did not.
yeah, you did not, because you were modifying it. So there's been no second to Mark's motion. So,
Let's make another stab at
so, do you want to, trustee Lancaster, do you want to make an attempt at this?
I don't think if his motion was
I
not
don't
second,
think-
I don't think
I
he can
can.
make another motion.
No, I'm saying trustee Lancaster can make a motion.
Mine wasn't seconded either, though, I tried, so, I mean, I can make, I mean, guess what's the,
I don't think you only get one stab at the.
Nancy, you got something here from what?
All right,
Well,
okay.
let's do this,
Let's-
we've been dating this long enough, let's.
All right,
to the next item.
let's say that we'll go with the pickleball rooms on the back page of this with the addition of an additional line that includes the, a reservation process for organized groups. Right? And we'll use the paddle stacking method to control the flow back and forth on the court.
All right, what I'll say is. I will make the motion that we go with the example on the back of the packet with the addition that we change item 2 to be the standard pickleball paddle cue system to identify the next group of paddlers to move upstairs.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Mike.
You're taking off this bottom stuff.
Yes, and the bottom stuff will be up bottom.
And you're adding, reservation process, is that part of your motion at all? We talked about it, but I didn't even say it, it is for the record. So I think we need to treat all our groups the same.
And I would say that we remove the bottom square here.
Yeah. And also add for organized groups that they have to get.
And then item 6 would be. Private groups or clubs need to
Maybe we're just adding food or something here.
get staff, what would I say, go through the. Shark reservation process.
So we're not having first come first served.
It is first come, first served.
It is still first come, first served. Yes,
That's what had a few system.
yes. First come, first served.
He said we're gonna eliminate that box.
Yeah, because I changed number 2.
Yeah.
To have the standard pickleball paddle cue system. To identify the next group of paddlers,
So that is first,
move on to there.
all right. And Mike seconded the motion, correct?
Yes.
Are we prepared?
Okay, really, one quick modification, we would ask that we would not use the word rules, and we would use the word guideline.
Guidelines,
Because then rules insinuate to enforce this, and we don't have the time to.
five guidelines are good.
Isn't that what it says right there, guidelines?
So it's rules.
So we're changing it to guidelines. With a motion in a second. Are you prepared to vote your ballot? Vote your ballot.
I vote aye.
Oh, yes, it has passed with one nay. Shoot. All right, so you guys will need to. If you're gonna do any kind of ladders or anything like that, you'll have to get it approved through staff.
I mean, they.
Ladders, that's a. We need
Like a sugar bowl.
They know what I'm saying.
Then I'll make a motion for a 10-minute recess.
Oh, thank God.
that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, guys. You know what you guys really need? You need to build 2 more pickleball courts at another park.
You're gonna donate yourself, or you're gonna donate?
Rest of all, he's had the same problem, and you know what they're doing? They're putting. They were signing a legal inventory. Yes, Bill was so those, and that, and we're not. When they have on. But never, for the other side of town. I really want the person I know where it is. No. Stay recording. But again, a lot of sometimes like. Why don't matter once.
Yeah. Usually everybody has a close section.
So this, yeah, we're sure.
You're Swiss. There's one. What's up on here? You can turn like earlier. So. Stuff on there, so. There's things I miss. Like just me, so I miss what I'm saying. I like the. So, main of different scales, I'm sure. It's fun, it's challenging.
All right, let the record show it is. What is it, 8:34? My God, we are back into open session. One, we are moving on to item E, final approval of the Redwood Park Master Plan. You have the information in your packet. You have some proposed diagrams and some proposed ideas. What is your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the Greenwood Park Master Plan as printed and circulated.
Is there a second by Mike? We need discussion. Ballot,
Aye.
let the record show the motion is unanimously. Now we have a request to approve a contract with, I'm gonna butcher his name, but Beanstalk Natural Playgrounds for a conceptual design at Glenwood Park for $17,250. Yeah,
If I can ask you to put this item on hold, since the agenda published, I heard from a village resident that had some contacts with a Wisconsin firm, that a Canadian firm. So we're meeting, they're out of Milwaukee, so we're meeting with them on Thursday, and we may be bringing this back in as a different firm to work with somebody in Wisconsin versus somebody in Canada.
okay, so I'm not gonna table this item, I'm gonna just pull this item, if we're gonna change the vendor and everything. Is that okay? I can do that, right? Refer it back to staff. We need a motion to refer back to staff. Okay, need a motion to refer this back to staff. Motion by trustee Lancaster, second by trustee. And
Oh, I just have one question.
go ahead, questions.
Yeah. Does this also maybe include a fully inclusive type playground type thing too? Because there's.
Yeah, this would not be that.
Maybe
There's a lot of interest in it, so we're looking. Couple.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, here to vote ballot. Vote ballot.
Aye.
Record show the motion to refer back to staff has passed unanimously. All right. Additional funding for $41,045.19 for lighting electrical services at Farmer Field by We Energies. You have the information in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the lighting at Farmer Field Park. Total of $116,045.19.
I'll second.
Oh, wait. No.
Total.
Yeah, but this is, yes, but the request isn't the additional. So let's keep it clean. This request is for the additional, because we already budgeted.
Well, we only had we still need to. We only budget the project, this is actually approving to do the project. We almost need two motions, and one to approve the additional funding and one to actually approve the project, so I guess I can restate.
But we already approved part of it.
Yeah.
No, we haven't ordered to put money in there, I'll approve the project.
But we include money in the budget, did we not?
Yes, we did, but our purchasing policy is if we're false. Water treatment pumps, since they use that, don't we have to approve the actual project to spend the money in because of the dollar amount?
I think we're just modifying the budget.
We had already included the budget amount, so we're adding additional funds to make it the total project amount. So I think all we do is approve.
It doesn't. I don't think it's a horse and piece. If you wanna make the motion for the total amount, you can.
I think it'd be okay. I just want to think we as a board should give staff the approval to move forward with Gateway Lighting, that's why I was making the motion that I did.
I don't know, Andy, what do you think?
Andy or Tracy is supposed to go.
I don't think it matters, you can either. Move to increase the budgeted amount of $75,000 by $41,000 and approve. The overall cost is 116, it's
The horse and piece, right?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I wonder about is because we, it's a city plan,
On the agenda.
on the agenda, it says 41,000. So,
But in the number, it has the total.
yes, but it comes back to a little bit. Clarification, does it make a difference, Andy?
Because of the way it's on the agenda, I would probably just approve,
41,000?
41,000.
Because otherwise it's an open meeting violation.
Yeah, I always send my motion and make anyone that is approve the additional $41,045.19 for lighting and service costs by Raider Unit Department Field.
Is there a second? Second by Darlene. Any further discussion? Scott?
And where's this out of general fund, or is this coming out of park impact fee?
Park impact is still working.
Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Trustee Lancaster?
Does this also include the Duke Paper Soccer Club as far as?
It does not. That lighting is 367,000 total, and we have to develop a plan for that.
Okay, but this. If you would decide to do that plan later, the electrical meter to tap into in order to execute that plan.
Yes, the electrical service is sized enough to do that as well as a future pavilion, but it does not include the lighting or all.
Yeah, sure, okay.
Any other questions or discussion? There's a motion second, go to ballot.
Vote aye.
So the motion is carried unanimously. Very good. All right. Lighting plan for stormwater ponds at the Bearwood Community Park. Chad, you want to talk to the survey you put out?
Yeah, so we had, I think trustee Lancaster had asked us to explore putting lighting around the stormwater pond on the north side of Darby Community Park. We originally went to the League Energies and talked to them about putting additional lighting. They only do overhead lighting, so there was either a full on typical street light or a decorative acorn light. And after we got estimates and a plan from them, we thought, well, is that really what the neighbors are gonna want? Cause it was gonna be like a landing strip at an airport. So we decided to release a public survey through SurveyMonkey that we televised on Facebook. We had about 245 residents take it. And it was overwhelmingly supportive of the colored lighting, which are lower lights that shine right on the trail. They're only 3 to 4 feet tall. So unfortunately, We Energies does not provide that type of lighting. So this would have to be installed and maintained village-owned lighting. So based on that recommendation, your packet is a cost for us to work with Lee's Group as we man to design that system. And then go out to bid and ultimately bring it back here for the lower lighting, the spacing and all that stuff to be determined as we need for the plan. But we thought it made sense to go with the wishes of the residents versus just putting in the energy's lights and having to deal with a lot of people complaining about light.
Any questions or comments? Trustee Lancaster?
Just one question, since this is lying around the stormwater pond, would this be eligible for stormwater fees or does it have to be for fees?
That's a good question. I thought it was, thought park, but it could be stormwater.
Yeah, I'm thinking it could be eligible for stormwater as well.
And I'm gonna make a motion to approve the contract with McMahon for 21,000 to develop forward lighting, bidding documents and construction services coming on stormwater fees.
Well, why don't we verify that? We can for sure do it up. You know, why don't we just approve the money and if possible, utilize stormwater fees? Because if we lock it in, we may have to,
Jeff just said we can't.
I mean, you kind of hit them cold, man.
I think we don't.
I think we're not sure.
All right, you're good, all right. The stormwater fees done, okay. I'm trying to cut you guys some slack, but that's great. Second by Mike. Any other discussion? All right, vote your ballot.
I'll vote aye.
Very good, motion is carried unanimously. Okay. This one wasn't in full course, but okay. Approval to purchase W 1616 Cameo Court for $100,000 for a future park. Chad, you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so this property had originally burned in a fire, I think in October, November of last year. We received complaints in January or February that it wasn't being cleaned up, so the village originally issued a razor repair order to get this done. And then during the course of that process, I had been working pretty closely with the owner, Lisa Jacksonville, Florida, about what they're gonna do with this property. An idea came forward from trustee Lancaster and Hanschke about whether this would make sense for a future park in the village buying it. Because there's been talk in the neighborhood about extending the trails around the stormwater detention pond that's immediately adjacent to this site. So I reached back out to the owner and said, would you consider selling it to the village? They already had an offer on the table for about 100,000. So he said, well, if the village wants to buy it, they would be willing to sell it for 100,000. So that's where we're at. You know, I think it helps in the park master plan, talks about additional parks in these specific neighborhoods. Because the closest park is Darboy, which is distance away. And as trustee he said, he said, young ones growing up in the neighborhood and having something closer to the house and the changing of the neighborhood would make sense. So the idea would be to buy this, use village staff to demolish it, fill it in, and then build ultimately the future a trail system around the stormwater detention pond that would start and end at the park and then do some shade structure and a small little playground or something of that sort. And we would do a similar process to what we're doing with Renwood, where we would engage the neighborhood to see how they want to energize that site.
Comments or discussion? Julie?
Yeah, I have a question. How much land is there, Chad? How big is this parcel?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chad.
I'm sorry?
It's 3/4 of an acre.
3/4 of an acre.
3/4 of an acre? Okay. I'm just gonna say, I'm personally not in favor of something like this. I'd rather take that 100,000 and, I mean, we just heard about pickleball courts and the demand for the courts, and I'm more of an advocate of putting, you know, maybe considering putting some pickleball courts at another park, Farmers Field or wherever that would be. But not creating a very small park. 3/4 of an acre is not very big.
Scott?
So correct me if I'm wrong, I think when you look at the overhead map, we do not have any direct access from the street to that retention pond to put a trail. So even if we put a trail there, we don't have any right of way access to be able to put a trail there, which is why this idea came up. Because right now, there's no way to access it. If you look at the land use map or the Calumet County overview, you can't walk through people's yards, you can't walk through properties, you can't walk from a street to get to there, you know what I mean? There's no public access, so that property would actually give you access to be able to put a trail around there, which is why it would be, that's how the idea started, that this would be the main connection point. And
We take care of that.
Yeah, how do we take care of it right now?
I don't know how we get there unless we
There's a
get,
maintenance easement for maintenance, and that's it, there's no public access,
There's a maintenance easement on Pearl Street or Pearl Quarter,
but it's only for maintenance purposes, not for public access or public use.
Where's,
For all courts to their far right of your map, right, far right corner.
you can't see this.
Yeah,
it's down below. Is it cut off? It's cut off, okay. I was wondering about that.
Do we know how big Dogwood Park is offhand? I think it's about the same size.
I think it's about the same size.
So it's pretty much a large
And
lot from a subdivision.
having grown up there, I'm gonna disagree with trustee Baldwin because I had little ones, 4 little ones there. And my wife and I never would trust little kids to walk to Darwood Community Park, which is the closest park. So imagine you're a 4-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid, or your mom. Where are you gonna go play? You're gonna go in someone's backyard, right? But if there's a place where kids can play in the neighborhood safely and not risk them walking down Hearthstone and then walking down the untrailed side of Noe Road all the way to Darboy Park versus, hey, there's a little park in the neighborhood where I don't have to ding my vehicle and drive all the way down to Darboy Park to say, hey, kids, are you gonna come home or not? It's right there in the neighborhood. I've had 4 little ones there, and I'm telling you, it would be much safer and better to have little kids in a little park that every parent knows where their kids are gonna be at versus when you go to Darboy Park.
I got a quick question. Since you live in the neighborhood, what's north of here?
It's all vacant right now.
It's vacant.
And who owns it and what's it?
Irene Heinbrook's family owns all that property. He's, at some point they will. That to the left there, as well as to the farm field and all of that there, that's the. So it's a very good sized parcel of vacant land that's all developed all there, so they just don't have a desire to develop that right now, but at some point, I'm sure that.
It'll be residential then or something.
So you could, there definitely would be an opportunity in the future with that, I'm sure as that would develop. To also secure a little larger parcel connected to this, because it is all vacant.
Well, my concern is setting a precedent of $100,000 for half an acre.
Well, that's what I
It's
said.
pretty pricey.
But Chad, I think, talking to Chad, I thought it was,
It's a little bit more than what I would say we would wanna pay, but I think it's an opportunity, it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity, because everything else in that neighborhood is developed. So it's either pay a little bit more and get the park, or let it go and say, darn it, we should have done that.
plus it's gives us access to
To
put
the
a
park.
trail right away.
Yeah.
Well, and then I got another question. Putting a trail around the detention basin, is there? Who, because Harrison's in charge of this, now you know it says Garner Creek on here, right? But Harrison owns this, right?
Yeah, but it's in the packet,
Yeah,
the deed was already cleared up.
yeah, I was just double checking because so, all right.
I mean, if you.
So we're not really looking at a half acre here, we're looking at the half acre plus
Yeah.
size of the.
Yeah, it's 3/4, and then when we look at, they're selling these subdivisions now, our newer subdivisions, 1/3 acre lots are selling for $75,000 to $80,000. The price of land around here has skyrocketed, so.
And not only that, but right now that retention pond's been there a long time, it's not been used, and if you look at other communities, it's in the developer's agreement that they have to put a trail around all their retention ponds. This one doesn't have one, but I think it would be a good idea to put one there, because right now, we have a lot of people with kids and dogs walking around in that circle, and I think if you give people the opportunity to walk around the retention pond, I think it's a good use of public space with, I think we should make that part of in the future agenda. That all retention ponds should have a trail put in by the developer because it's a good use of
It's
of
already.
green space.
Okay, Mike, you had a comment?
Does staff know how many acres this pond is? Is it an acre? Is it 3 acres and 4?
I think it's 4 acres.
So actually, we're going 4.25 acres,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
obviously can't use the water,
Yeah.
but.
yeah. Yeah,
we-
that's why I asked the question. Mark, did you have a comment?
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
Julie? Julie?
The
Go
only
ahead,
thing
Julie.
in regard to trustees Hanchke's comment, I mean, it makes sense what you're saying. If we can get access to the pond and build a trail, I get that. But the only thing I just want everybody to remember is Harrison is not just a concentration in the Darboy area. I live in Harrison. If I want to take my grandkids to a park, I have to drive them. They cannot walk to any park. And I know that that's the case for, Allison, where you live, and other people live in the town of, or the village of Harrison. So I understand, but please don't forget that it's bigger than just where you guys live.
And I would also, I'm also not comfortable with DPW razzing the building that should have been taken down 6 months ago. I don't want to get in the habit or set a precedence of DPW taking down, barns that burned down and this that burned down.
I don't think that's gonna be a problem, because we won't have access to those properties, so unless we get an inspection warrant, and we're actually able to go on the property and do the work. We have no, it's still private property, we have no rights to just go on people's land and take down trails that are him. We have to go through a process and state statute to do that.
So, and anyway, this comes out of park impact fees, which we already have 1.1 million, we just utilized some of it. And for a little park in a neighborhood where you have a lot of kids. Cause I've lived there for 23 years and that rotates out a lot of children or families come in and out of there, young children, and I see them walking all the time. I'm gonna go ahead and make the motion to,
One thing before you make
to,
for the minutes, if you're making an address, the address is incorrect in the memo. It's actually W6036 Cameo.
What is it?
W6036.
W60 36.
I believe that's what the picture shows, it's pretty small print.
1660, 6016.
6016, okay, the first digit.
6066.
Yeah, I think it's 6016.
how about I just say the burnt out,
There you go.
That was on Cameo Court.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to purchase the burnt out property on Cameo Court for $100,000 for future park in connection to the retention pond using park impact fees.
For a second?
I just want to say, I think that's too crazy also.
I'll second.
Okay, so Mark me a second, Darlene me a. Well, I also agree that it's very, very pricey. But that's the con. The pro side is that it is part of our approved park plan. That we would get property in this area. So, did you have a question, sir?
Well, in the professor. Big enough to put pickleball courts on?
Yeah.
All right, there's a motion second on the table. Are you prepared to vote your ballot? All right, vote your ballot. Julie,
She's.
you gotta turn yourself on again. Turn yourself on, Julie.
I'm sorry, nay.
All right, let the record show the motion has passed with 2 nays. And mine was a nay with reservations. But it's a lot.
The people in the area will be happy that that thing is coming down.
Either way. All right, let's spend some real money. Okay. We are looking to award the bid for 2024 street resurfacing projects for $1,118,263.80 to MCC.
It should be Northeast Asphalt.
This one should be Northeast Asphalt.
Yes.
I'm going to need the motion to award the bid,
These asphalt,
to award the bid for 2024 street resurfacing projects to Northeast Asphalt for a total of $1,118,263.80.
is there a second?
Well, second.
Second by Mike, any discussion? Which ballot?
I vote A.
Alright, motion's carried unanimously. All right.
One comment, just if
Trustee
we
Lancaster.
approve this, I would just ask our staff and make sure we get the communications out for once it's doing it here.
You saw in the memo that it's being worked on, and as soon as you approve it, the letters are ready to be mailed to every truck.
Perfect, thank you. Well, and just the community in general, so they know what we're doing this
You
year.
understand?
All right, with all these parks we're creating, staff has requested to make it's a part-time position, correct?
It's not a new position, it would be just a role as a supervisor, so. In the Department of Public Works right now, we have a, Jeff is the operations manager, we have a public works lead man who oversees the street staff. This role would be similar to that role, where it would be an existing staff person, people with whom would apply for the Department of Public Works for the role, we go through the interview process. And somebody would be basically promoted to take on the lead as the parks overseer and the park staff and the summer help. And the idea behind this is when I started looking at the way the reporting structure is, there's there was separation in everybody reported basically to Jeff, and we need to get people into departments so that we don't have 8 or 9, 10 people reporting directly to Jeff. So this would help help in the succession planning of having 2 lead people, one for streets and one for parks. The budget impact for 2024 is about $4,400. And so the idea is to involve the people in the existing department and allow them to apply and promote from within.
Is that gonna be for right away, or is this for 2025?
This would be for right away this year.
I'd like to make a
Any
motion.
questions? Oh, go ahead, Julie.
I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion to approve creating a park supervisor role and recruiting for the position from existing employees in the DPW.
Second by Darlene. Any discussion? Hearing of none, vote your ballot.
I vote aye.
Let the record show the motion's carried unanimously.
How about a pickleball overseer?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
Okay, this will probably make you guys happy. This is a motion to approve bidding streets and Blazing Meadow subdivision utilizing savings from the 2024 resurfacing and seal coating project.
I'm gonna make the motion to approve the use of savings from the 2024 resurfacing and seal coating project to bid work for Blazing Meadows subdivision.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Julie. Any discussion? Trustee Lancaster.
My only question, I guess, from staff is since this subdivision was originally in 2026. Is I just want to confirm that it's staff's recommendation to move this up versus leave that as a 2026 item and put these funds back in the general fund, knowing we have some other substantial potential expenses coming out.
Well, when we look at the savings between all of the projects for this year, even by rededicating roughly 500,000 towards this project, we still are gonna see a savings of about 800,000. With some grants that we'll talk about in future agenda items. So there will be savings yet that aren't spent, but we just thought that it made sense to prioritize and move this project up, given that we have the flexibility this year and we know that the focus of the board is to do more roles.
No, it's great. I just wanted to confirm this, if we get asked, sometimes people in the community ask why we're doing different roads and stuff, so just confirm that's why you were moving this up and everything, so. For your community, so thank you.
Well, and isn't it because we also have equipment in the area? So it was convenient to do this at the same time, so that rather than moving equipment around and doing a different, because we had originally talked about doing a different subdivision that's further away.
Right.
But because they're already working in this area, it makes more sense for efficiency to do them at the same time. So is there a motion to approve?
We have.
Motion and second? All right, prepared to vote ballot?
I vote aye.
Let the record show the motion is carried unanimously. All right, we need to award the bid for crack sealing contract. Low bidder was Precision Seal Coating for $127,000. $127,200.
Motion to base for the 2024 crack sealing contract to Precision Seal Coating Inc. for $127,200 to continue circulated.
Mike beat it. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Vote your ballot. Vote your
Aye.
ballot. Going to be a long night. Motion is carried unanimously. Now, the fun stuff. Now, is this MC?
That's ARCC.
MCC. All right, I knew there were a couple things there. Okay, to bid for, MCC is the low bid for the project for State Park Road for $759,920.80.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to award the bid for State Park Road reconstruction to MCC Inc. for $759,920.80. What's with the 80 cents?
No, you could round up. Is there a second? Second by Darlene. Oh, Mike first, Mike got you first, Mike got you first.
Do we have all land bought on State Park?
Thank you. So to address your question, no. We have, they've got almost all of the parcels. They're working on 4 remaining parcels. In talking with Lee, it sounds like this project probably won't start until the middle of June. So we're optimistic that we're gonna get all of that under contract. So we would ask that the board would approve this with a contingency of securing all of the land that's the right-of-way land that's needed in case we need to get out of this because we can't get the parcels under contract.
Is this a matter of you need to pass this so that when it does, get that?
No, you want to pass it so that we can lock in this price because.
No, that's what I'm saying. You're locking in the price. That's understood. Wow.
Yes.
So do you need me to amend my motion to say with the contingency that the right of way purchases are complete?
Yes.
And the second was by me, Darlene, and you're good with that? Mark?
I just got a real quick section here. So we just made 2 big motions here in the last 15 minutes. One was for $1.1 million. I mean, we had the name wrong. Why wasn't?
It was my fault. I'll take it.
Okay.
I'll take
And
it.
then we had on end now, we had another mistake for $750,000, the wrong company name.
It was my mistake.
Okay,
I wrote 30 some memos for this board meeting. And,
I'm just trying to,
this is an existing one, and so that we'll correct it in the future, so that we.
okay, fine.
Well, I'll give you tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll give you tomorrow.
I'm just trying to, when we have that kind of amount of money, make sure we got.
All right,
Okay, thanks.
prepared to vote your ballot? All right, vote your ballot. Let the record show the motion is carried unanimously. All right. Green Heights, you're looking for a motion to approve the agreement with McMahon for $93,000 in the Green Heights subdivision to include additional streets. Chad?
So this was brought up when we met to talk about the streets and the fact that we're doing the streets in Cedar Ridge Estates. And these streets are connected. Some of these were brought up by Trustee Lancaster and Jordan, just for some of those. So we think that it makes sense, and given that there's ditch issues out there that need to be addressed, it makes sense to include these into the Cedar Ridge Estates because they all kind of interconnect. And I have to look to somebody that's more intelligent on this than I am. But the idea would be is that since we're already out there in the same area and doing ditch work, that we would address the ditch problems that are upstream or downstream of the current one, and then include those in the 25 projects as well. So the idea here is to do the design like we're doing this year, since they're all kind of interconnected.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with the plan for 93,000 and Heights subdivision.
One second.
Second by Scott. Any further discussion?
I just want to also say that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, we moved up some projects this year, right? That next year is kind of light. I think it's just the Cedar Ridge area and Heen Heights, so that we're not gonna be doing 3 million. It's gonna be substantially less, so
Well, we can look at that at budget
I
time.
know that, but I'm just saying that it's not gonna be like this year when we had the $1 million carryover. That's why we pulled up State Park Road, right? Because that was originally supposed to swap with Cedar Ridge from. Cedar Ridge is supposed to be this year, but we moved up.
So these two will be next year.
But we're doing design work now, so that way we get ahead, because we were having problems with
Yes.
not being able to get design and bid all the
Because
time.
there's some stitches and we
Because
have
of
to
all
do
of
that
that
when we
survey.
know it's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're being
I
proactive.
like the proactive planning. Yeah.
Prepared to vote your ballot?
I vote aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. Very good. Okay. And we have a grant. Motion to accept $45,680.77 from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Local Road Improvements Program for Peyton Street.
Motion to take the money. $45,680.77. The state fiscal agreement with Wisconsin Department of Local, Transportation, Local Rules Improvement Plan.
And
I'll say,
well, I think Julian beat you to it. Wayne, you're gonna second?
Yes,
Julian? Any discussion? What's your ballot?
vote aye.
Okay, now here's my favorite one coming. Good.
We'll just make the motion and just.
Sure.
Okay, motion to approve the state municipal. Agreements with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Local Road Improvement Program for up to $815,436.15 towards state park road improvement.
Well, second by.
But is that pending?
Wait,
So I just,
yeah.
so I just wanna state that. I just thought I would throw this project in and see what happened, and lo and behold, we got funded, but, granted, our total project is less than this. They'll fund up to 50/50. So we'll fund probably in round numbers, $350,000 of dollars, and the DOT will fund $350. So instead of a $1.6 million project, it'll be under a $400,000 project for the village. And given that we have 3 years to spend this, 4 years through 2029. So if the project doesn't go this year, we can still use the funding in later years. But I think it makes sense for us to accept it and kind of defray our costs, so there's some more savings in our budgets for future goals.
What does that mean? We could do an extra mile of state park?
No,
Oh,
it's specific to that location, and as we head this way, there's a lot more wetland
okay.
and right-of-way issues that we have to deal with.
although, is there any kind of amendment to try to go north though then? Seeing the bidding was a lot.
Neither has the answer there. North of Schmidt.
Cause north of Schmidt is getting to that point too, on state park. I don't know what the stage process is here, but if we can capture and not give back.
The engineer said we're looking at urbanizing that section.
I thought there was an urbanization section in there, or the trail going north of Schmidt up to KK.
There probably needs to be discussions there. I guess what I'm wondering is there anything we can work out with the state to not give them back $400,000?
Well, let's see what I can do.
That's what I'm getting, I guess as part of us, that's all I'm asking here.
All right, there's a motion and a second to accept the agreement with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Vote your ballot.
I vote aye.
Let the record show the motion is carried unanimously.
Have President, one more comment.
Sure.
Just. Hey Chad, I'm sure you were involved, and I don't know who else from staff was involved in this, but I just want to say. Very good job in securing grant funds.
Yes.
That's something that Harrison has lacked in. Tremendously. So very good in securing some money from the for us. So.
All right, very good. We are up to the bid for the lift station number 1 to the local bidder of Crane Engineering for $52,500, the lift station 1 piping replacement project. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Darlene,
For lift station number 1, pipe replacement for Harrison Utilities for $52,500.
I'll second it.
any discussion? Vote your ballot.
Vote aye.
Okay.
Does someone have a copy?
Matt, vote your ballot.
I will, I'm just, sorry, I'm missing a copy, I didn't see it, so I'm very.
Record show the motion is carried unanimously. Okay, Mary Jo, you sat through a long meeting, you didn't even get any fancy bars or anything, did you, right? Okay, so there's a long range planning results. Contract Martha, oh wait. That was here, but,
I'm missing that too, there's a couple things we're missing, we see.
no, I got an extra thing with the packet with her report. I got an extra.
Yeah, 'cause that's what I got too, I got our extra copy of the report.
Yeah, don't do the extra one. The next one is the contract with Martinson and Isley to convert the Harrison utility to GIS database. I think we are missing that one.
Yeah, I don't have anything what we're voting on here for that.
We're missing that. Chad?
So, what this is we've worked with company, over the number of months on trying to get the data records of the, like the Harrison Utilities digital. And the way to do that is you put a, the GIS system. This will allow for, the staff hopefully to minimize the amount of hours that they spend on doing utility locates, because we're having it available to the utility companies, as well as a better thing for on the site information gathering when the staff is out in the field, where it's having to come back and look at paper maps and carry books and go through sheets and do all that kind of stuff.
Okay, now I have a question, since none of us have it in our packet, right? We have this in our packet.
Can this wait till next month, so we have?
Well, I think they want to get going on it. Can we put this on the May 7th agenda?
No.
Well, it needs to get moving forward. It can't wait a whole nother month.
Can someone get us, can we table this for a few minutes? Can someone go out and print something for us and we'll, can they table this for?
Got a copy of it, anyone?
No, we don't need to table it. We can.
Well, let's move on to Jennifer. Brown.
It's on the agenda. Yeah, don't table it, because that's.
It's in the electronic one. So,
Who's gonna read a 200-page electronic?
Probably want paper.
That could happen.
Do you know, I think when I looked online, on the copy they were online.
Yeah, but it's,
We printed these old school, where as the memos were done, they were being put on a table.
okay. All right, so we are gonna jump down to T, which is the approval of the Trimble DA2 equipment and training to Harrison Utilities for GIS data collection for roughly $5,500. I'm gonna round it up, so, correct?
Sure. So this one goes with the other one, so
Yes.
the enemy will be once nice, they will be doing the northern half of the, basically State Highway 114 and 10 north. And our folks will be doing the lakefront, the fire lanes, to collect all the data related to curb stops and valves and manholes and all of that, because they have to locate all that stuff in them. So this is the data collector for the staff to go out and collect the GIS coordinate points to put it into the system. And then they'll use this to update the information in the future, as changes happen in the district. So the idea here is that we felt, instead of paying Emily to do the work along the lakefront where we have to locate it, and then they have to come hurry up and try to find their locates, it just makes sense for our staff to be trained in how to do that. So they're going to be collecting all of that data along the lakefront on the fire lanes within the Harrison Utilities District, and this is the equipment to do that.
Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the Trimble DA2 equipment and training for Harrison Utilities for GIS data collections.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mark. Any discussion, Mike?
this is the locate, you put flags in the ground for this?
No, this is
flags?
the data collector that puts like a GPS coordinate on that and then gets pushed back to the system to be mapped out.
It goes right to computer then, yeah,
Good.
good,
Yep.
all right. Julie?
I vote aye.
Let the record show the motion's carried unanimously. All right, we are gonna move on to the request from the Harrison Athletic Association for a 6-month Class B alcohol license and to waive the license and operator fees. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion to waive the fees and 6 months
Approve the license.
of alcohol.
Any discussion? Vote your ballot.
I vote nay.
Let the record show the motion is carried with 1 nay. All right. Okay. All right, so hot off the press. So we are back to item S. With the contract or agreement for services for $117,000. To provide the GIS conversion of all our data, correct?
Right. Was that, is that a split 50/50 water sewer budget as well?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion. For the contract with Stanley to convert Harrison utility records to GIS base. GS database that's printed and circulated with the attachments.
Is there a second by trustee Lancaster? Any further discussion? Which ballot?
I vote aye.
Let the record show the motion is carried unanimously. Okay. We are down to item B. In our draft referendum for increase in levy limit in lieu of borrowing for road maintenance. Now, I understand that we are not to make a decision tonight. Because we have until. Where did I see that? We have until
The May
the
meeting.
May meeting. I knew I saw it in here somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, the end of May. We still make the 70 days deadline. For the August referendum. Trustee Lancaster.
So I have a number of questions on this. And I guess that's good if we don't have to make a decision tonight, because I think this needs to get reworded better or differently. Because this is worded very confusing right now. Also, we should not confuse the public with 3 different options here. I think the board was pretty clear unanimously that we did not want to raise the tax rate on roads. We were strictly doing this to eliminate some borrowing. So I would like this memo cleaned up for one, to reflect very clearly that we're keeping a mill rate at $3.49 per thousand per road.
Well, I think one of the problems is we haven't decided as a board. How much road work we intend to do.
Well, but here's where we've charged them. This is where I guess I'm considering part why this gets really confusing. Is what we've charged the village manager with, at least my understanding was from my take on, as one board member anyway, is he was supposed to work with Baird. We're not the financial experts all sitting up here as far as all that. We saw the Baird spreadsheets here and it all gets into a lot of numbers real quick. That was supposed to look at how much borrowing can we replace. And the amount of money that we were committing to paying debt service, that we're not gonna have new debt service for because we're not gonna reborrow for roads. That should be the target amount to then match that $3.49. Like, I don't understand why it's only 600,000. We borrowed over $1 million this year to make up, to keep that flat at that $3.49, and we're paying back over $1 million. So how are we losing $400,000 in the process here?
The short answer is that's the way the math works out, and the difference between a debt payment. Where that's the number used in the calculation of the levy limit. And then the proceeds of that, where you get that full amount upfront to spend. Versus raising the levy. And getting that amount upfront to spend.
Okay. So then my follow-up question to that would be, what is the state requirement for how long debt has to be on the books to qualify? Is it 3 months, 6 months?
To qualify for the levy limit,
Right.
it has to close before December 31st.
Okay, and then, so close before December 31st. And then that following year, so let's say we're borrowing this year, we have to close by December 31st of 2024 to put that on this year's levy for the tax bills that would go out, all correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then what is the soonest that we can pay that off in 2025?
I would have to explore it.
Well, and my question is it even with Baird? Or should we be looking at state trust fund loan or something like that? That I realize the interest rate is higher from the state trust fund, and so typically, long-term borrowing, you're not gonna want to borrow from the state trust fund. Because you wanna do bonds for long-term borrowing. But if it's a matter of, we only gotta have debt on the books for a month or two.
No. That would be a short-term loan. And short-term loans do not affect your levy limit. I know it's more than a year, but I can't tell you the exact time.
But I don't think that's right either, because that's why I think we need some research here. Because we borrowed over $1 million this year, and we also went and paid most of that right back off this year.
Yeah.
So it's,
We have, 5 promissory notes outstanding right now.
we took a new one out and we substantially increased that debt payment. I know we did,
But we're paying off,
but we have other older debt loans, well, those payments are already locked in, you don't read, those bonds are already, those payments on the previous bonds were already determined when they were originally taken out. We took out a new bond this year with a very large upfront payment.
That large upfront, payment, trustee Lancaster included the payments to the other loans that he was referring to.
Okay.
So it was a total payment of all the loans.
But I guess with that too, if it's just a matter of, we need to be strategic here, and this is where I'm looking for the staff to bring back strategic to us, knowing what we're trying to accomplish. All we're trying to accomplish here is to reduce some interest costs to our residents so we can do more roads. So for example, let's say you could take out and I'm just gonna use round numbers here, and staff, you guys need to work on this. But let's say you can take out a loan from the state trust fund for $1 million. And you can pay half of it back or 3/4 of it back, and you gotta leave the rest little bit sit there for till the following year, so that it's long term, if that's what the state. Unfortunately, the state legislature's tying our hands with a lot of this. I wish we didn't have to mess with finances like we have to here, but it's what the cards that the state legislature has dealt us. They really should change these formulas.
Okay, I think we're getting way.
No, questions I'm asking are for a very good reason. Because if there's some different ways to do this,
You're losing me completely.
I don't know if for only 600,000, if it's worth going back to the public.
And I don't think it is.
Through all this,
And I don't think it
and I
is.
think there might be some better ways to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I don't think $600,000 is worth revving up the public. Trust manager has it.
Yeah, so trustee Lancaster, I think you and I are talking about the same thing in terms of what you asked. We had been borrowing around $1.5 million between 1.4 and 1.8 the last 3 years for roads. So that first option was, what if we just raise the levy amount, that amount, capture that amount of roads? And then the math that ripples out to the higher mill rate, which I know the board wouldn't be happy about. So then the other option is keeping the mill rate flat, which would limit us to about $600,000. Now, I agree. I'd like an outside source to double check my figures to make sure they're correct. And I can tell you that the draft resolution language already needs to be revised. Village clerk Vicky and attorney Rossweiss already caught an issue there that needs revision for final approval for the board. And I would like to have an outside, like Baird, confirm my mill rate calculations, but currently, that's what I'm calculating, that if the goal is to keep the mill rate flat, that would get us about $600,000 of raise levy.
And if all we're doing is 600,000, I don't think it's worth all the paperwork and all the education, everything that would be required to do this, and I think we're still having to look at some borrowing, then unfortunately, we just need to figure out the right ways and the smartest ways to borrow and keep interest costs the least it is, and maybe we can lobby our state legislatures to change the rules around some of this.
Okay, Scott?
Hey, I distinctly remember when we had a discussion about with the village attorney at the time, and we had discussed different options to deal with the transportation fee, and he had stated, and I asked him the question, could we go to referendum to exceed levy limits? And he told us, and I remember this distinctly, this is where the idea came from. He says you could do a one-time referendum where you just say, I want to exceed levy limits, not to exceed the mill rate. And that was all we needed to, and we did it one time with the sole purpose, and that's where we debated, well, what if we get voted out and another board could come in? And then we said, well, we could just put in the language that it's specifically tied to the roads. And I remember that conversation, he was sitting right there, I just remember, he said, you do it one time and say, you asking for to exceed levy limits, not to exceed the mill rate for the purpose of eliminating borrowing for the roads. And then I think that's it.
I don't think that was indefinitely. I don't think that was.
I would ask Andy, he specifically said you only had to do it one time. So you only said to do it one time.
If I could jump in, please.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there are options to make it an ongoing raising of the levy. We are limited by state statute in terms of how that question is phrased, and in terms of what the resolution has to say to authorize it.
Okay.
So the initial feedback I got from Andy in preparation for this meeting was we couldn't tie it to the mill rate in the wording. I'll go back and double check that, trustee Hanchey, okay? We'll confirm that. But that's the initial feedback I got.
So we can't use the word mill rate in the language.
That's what he told me initially. But I will confirm.
Then how do these school districts, I mean, I see referendums all the time where they say it's got this impact on mill rate.
If it's a one-time situation, but if
Maybe
you
it's
look at.
2 or 3 years at a time.
If you look at the wording of that, it talks about how much money they're going to borrow and how much of the levy they're going to raise it to. And then they do the math and say it's gonna equate to 38 cents more in the mill rate. But the actual, you have to have that dollar amount. And what percentage of, if you're gonna be 120%, or it's gonna raise your levy limit 20%. They're just. That's pretty much what Andy told you as well, that you're discussing, it's the levy amount that you are putting in the referendum.
We have to put in a certain dollar amount, because that's different than what Andy had told us when he
Like
was
20%
here.
over what our levy limit is.
Because I distinctly remember we went through 7 different options on how to deal with this. And I asked him a question, can we do a referendum to exceed levy limits? And he said, yeah, you could do it and do it one time, and then you don't have to worry about it again. You worry about that. I would just
But it
like to have.
Would be more of a 3% over levy limit, because the state sets our levy limit. Then our referendum, that could be.
Yes, but because
So
we
it
have,
would be a
but our
3%
levy
over
limits
what the state
was what, 2.76. And in order to keep our mill rate flat and to fund the roads, we had to borrow money. And even with us borrowing money, we had to play around with debt service in order to keep the same mill rate. So the whole exercise here, so that we're not paying $200,000 a year in interest, and we're not paying Baird $50,000 and tying up staff resources to go through all the paperwork to be able to get this bonding. And then we have our time, and then we had to post it, there's public comment period. This whole exercise was so that we could save ourselves minimum $250,000 a year. Now, that might not seem like much, but you take that $250,000 times 10 years, what do you have? Quite a bit of chunk of change, and that's a lot of roads that could be done, a lot of public works stuff to be done. So I would not abandon this exercise, because even if it's $600,000 and it doesn't raise the mill rate, you're eliminating $250,000 of interest and fees.
But you're not in the end, because the problem is. That we're only gonna be able to have $600,000 for roads versus 1.4 million for roads. So you haven't actually, if you could capture the same 1.4 million, yes, but you're not, you're giving up $800,000 in road work.
But that's
You know, we
because of the
can't-
debt service. in the
But
borrower.
but I know, but we can't afford to give up $800,000 in road work. We have to continue doing, we have, I believe it's 100 miles of roads. And I know the village engineer, you know, you've done some calculations for us before of how many miles of roads we need to do per year. Right, with the cost, I mean, we got some very favorable bids this year, thankfully, but even, we're right. And we can't, there's no way you can, you have to do at least 1.4 million of roads a year, you have to. Or we'll get even more behind again, we're catching up, we're doing a very good job as a board catching up, but we can't catching up, so. Do some math, I mean, that's fine to bring this back, but I'm also asking staff, look at some of our other borrowing options here. Do we go to the state trust fund, is it a year you gotta keep that debt? And maybe that's only 50,000 in interest costs, and you're still saving 200,000 by doing that, then. There's gotta be some different ways to borrow this money, just long enough. Whatever they consider long term, if that's 12 months and 1 day, then so be it, let's figure out how we do this for 12 months and 1 day then.
Okay, I would like to caution, playing devil's advocate again, because when I first came in as village president, we had that loan that took us 3 months to fix.
That was different though, that was short term bank, that's what staff's gotta do.
Well,
That was because
okay.
we found out we can't borrow from Nicolay for only a couple of months.
I'm just saying, I don't want our financing to be too creative. Let's,
No, we should have no creative financing, it's whatever state law is, that's what staff needs to figure out what the state law is and we
Well,
follow it.
okay. How do you guys want to proceed with this document? Staff is looking for.
I mean, we've
ideas.
given you feedback, is that enough, or?
Do you know where to start from?
Yeah, so I'm hearing you wanna see it again in a month with a more revised version.
Well, and I'd also like to understand other financing options.
Well, that's
Or-
different than a referendum.
But no, but that's part of the decision if we move forward to make an educated decision on if we move forward with this referendum. I need to know how much road work we are giving up if we do the referendum.
And that comes back to my
And-
original question. If your target for road work is $1.5 million.
I think it has to be.
Okay, that's the problem that staff had trying to get this number for you, because they need to know your starting point for them to do the math around that.
Well, our 5-year road plan should dictate.
Right, the 5-year road plan has the amount, and that's, we just, let's go back, we have a 5-year road plan here.
But
Let's-
like you said, Scott, earlier, we just moved up a bunch of projects, so next year could be light.
Exactly.
But
I
if
mean,
we're,
I mean,
but if we're gonna do 1.5 million, let's give staff the number of the road work we wanna do, and then they can create the math from there.
that's why there's a 5-year road plan.
Well,
That's
But now-
what we did for next year, so that's where we would just amend the 5-year road plan. If they truly moved up a project, then they would have to adjust the 5-year road plan.
Yeah,
That's correct.
so we're gonna shoot for $1.5 million of road work.
Whatever the staff,
Done.
whatever the staff come forward with the 5-year road plan. That's the reason why we have a 5-year road plan, so this is less contentious and it's just. Okay, next year we moved up this one and we move up this one. Here's the amended 5-year road plan, and that's what they use for budget. time.
So I have the 5-year road plan right here. Approved, I'm sorry, we have the 5-year road plan right here in the packet tonight. 2024 to 2028, not counting what we moved up. Non-moved up things here already in the road plan, 2025 has $1,069,800 in it. 2026 has $1,550,000 in it. And 2027 has $1,993,000 in it. So the next 3 years, that averages out to $1.5 million a year. So that's my point. You have to do it's in the road plan already. We're doing $1.5 million a year.
So good. So we've got the target number. Let's refer it back to staff, have them rework the numbers using $1.5 million worth of road work. And then bring it back. Yeah,
And then give us an educated thing here on if we cannot accomplish via referendum, then what are other ways to save some interest costs, and then we know what to go with. Because it's only 600,000, it's not worth trying to explain that and potentially upset the taxpayers over, it's just not.
I agree.
But I just wanna make a comment here before.
Scott?
So I talked to someone who was an elected official in another local municipality, and he said. When I had a discussion about, hey, all the road projects we do. And she made a comment that they barely have $300,000 to do any road work. They can't do any road work because the cost of doing what they normally do far exceeds the cost. They just, the last year and this year, they just haven't done any road work. So we should look into it, and at least the public should know that we are very, 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 very fortunate that we've actually have the funding and the plans in place to be able to get these roads done, because other communities don't have that funding at all for roads, so that's all I think.
Right, so
Just one clarification, the 1.5, is that without or including the transportation fee? The shared revenue transportation,
We don't have a transportation fee anymore.
not transportation fee, part of our shared revenues are transportation designated.
Well, it's for staff to figure out how you're financing.
I just wanted to make sure that
I'm just saying budgeted wise, we should be budgeting at least, we should be having enough money to do a 5-year road plan, is what I'm getting at. If we can't execute the 5-year road plan and the plan's not worth the paper it's baked up.
This needs to be addressed.
so you have enough to
I do,
go forward?
thank you, yep.
All right, we're gonna move on then, guys. Okay, we have the ordinance, the draft, village code, chapter 119, small wind energy systems. I looked through this and I got a question for you, Andy, because, and I think, Mike, you made reference comment up before too, the ordinance that was being passed on by Ty Bowden and, Ron Tussler included the health requirements,
Health and safety,
the health and safety, and this ordinance doesn't even address anything for health and safety. So I was just questioning that.
Right, Andy Rossmus and I both, went back and forth. The health and safety, provisions. Let's see here. So it does say that in here, this is 192, is that the section is intended to preserve the public health and safety. Was that it?
It's just one, doesn't have the limitations that's included in Ron Tussler's ordinance.
But I don't have Ron Hustler's ordinance in front of me, so I'm not specifically sure what provision you're talking about there, but. Attorney Rossweiss and I went through this and tried to put together the most restrictive ordinance we could come up with that would withstand scrutiny. In the event that we were sued.
Because I personally didn't see anything that would stop a wind power like this at all.
There's nothing that's going to stop the wind towers, okay, so.
I understand.
And I thought that was clear from the last time, it's not meant to stop, what we're trying to do is put. Hurdles in place to make it more difficult and hopefully, dissuade. These wind farms from coming into the village, but there's nothing we can do to stop.
So now we can retroactively approve the ordinance, right? So if we wanted to tweak this and look at more options, we could do that.
Yes, so, the statute says that you can, enact an ordinance or policy. I don't want to misstate it, because to be quite frank, it's not, it's sort of poorly worded. But you can enact it up to the first day of the 4th month after receiving the application. And the reason why I don't like that, right, is that if you get an application, say on the 2nd day of the, let's just say May, right? You have June, July, August, and so it has to be acted by the first day of September. Okay, so that's fairly close to 120 days. Now, if you receive the application on the last day of the month, right? The last day of May, that shortens your time by roughly 28-30 days.
Okay, but we
Fine.
still have time to.
You have plenty of time, and the statute also. You are supposed to be notified, there's a 90-day. Free application period. And which, an owner would be required to notify you, the intent to install a. Wind energy system, so. Theoretically, your 4 months was really 6 to 7.
Yeah.
Because they have to notify you in advance that they're gonna be filing the application. And then the 4 months. Period I discussed earlier.
Is there a fee associated with that?
Excuse me?
Can we tie a fee associated to that?
To the application, yes, and one of the things that Chad and I were discussing before is that. You know, the application process calls for a lot of. We'll say scientific. Data that needs to be reviewed.
And the current staff is not capable.
And
of
then-
doing it.
Yeah.
Right, so. The statute PSC 120 actually allows you to pass those costs on to the applicant. Including attorney's fees and such. Basically, any reasonable cost that you would incur in reviewing the application can be passed on to the applicant.
And we know what we would want to put on that?
Well, we have a lot of concerns with the ordinances written from a staff perspective of trying to enforce it. So that's one of them. One of the recommendations would be that we would see if we could find an outside consultant that's an expert in wind towers, and that we could just ship these applications off to them and they could have our ordinance and they could send us back a recommendation very similar to what we do with these group on stormwater stuff, because we're not experts in that, and then pass those fees on to the applicant and let them kind of be the policer of all this stuff, because there's a lot of technicalities in here that I'm afraid Josh and myself will run the other way if we have to try to figure out how to enforce a lot of this, because it's pretty detailed.
You need a name and phone number, I have one. I'll give it to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I would like him to look at Ron Chesler's bill. What do you think, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing, can we tie anything in to wrecking the roads, damaging the roads? Cause they damage the roads heavily, these rural roads, they come in with these big semis. Sometimes there's up to 8 axles, 8, 9, 10 axles.
Sure, you're talking about for in the construction?
Yes.
I would have to look into that, so. I'm sure it's possible.
Because there's a town chairman down in Fond du Lac, and they were built. He said they damn near went bankrupt trying to repair roads, because they didn't have it in their budget. The windmill company said, see ya. So. Something I'll think about.
Some kind of retainer or something for their escrow for them.
So then will the Ron Chesler's ordinance, draft ordinance?
Yes, and we do have it. Andy Rothweisel's on vacation. He had the file. And both of them and I were searching for it today, to bring it in. It's in there somewhere, so we have it.
Okay.
I just didn't have it.
Any other questions or comments?
The only thing I would say is, even though I realize we can do this retroactive, but, this is very important to the community, so. I just would hope we could see a final to approve at the end of May meeting here. I thought we were getting it today, but I understand maybe things take more time sometimes, so I
Yeah.
just wanna make sure for sure that. If we can.
We'll do our best.
And is there also something we need to look at, even from road weight limits and things like that around how we classify some of our rural roads? Would that also do some preventing by just natural, they can't take these 8-axle trucks down these roads because of weight limits?
Well, that's a whole different,
Strategy and looking at ordinance and all that stuff.
yeah, that's a whole different problem with the weight of manure trucks and all that stuff.
Well, but that's agricultural, this is not agricultural, this is commercial. Different, so.
Yeah. All right, so you know where to go?
I believe so.
All right, we're moving on. Moving on, any other questions, comments on the ordinance? Right. Okay. All right. Board review. Ordinance D 24-06, amending village code chapter 2, article 2. For division 2-4-4, whatever it's. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. Anyway, basically, the current board review standard is that the entire board is supposed to, at least a quorum of the board is supposed to show up. And we always have problems with it because it's always a daytime meeting. So the request, we have the option through state statute to change the number of village board members that have to be present. And Vicky is suggesting that we do 2 member trustees and then plus the village president. So you would have a total of 3 as a quorum, would be a new quorum for the board review.
And having 2 alternates.
And having 2 alternates. What do you guys think?
Sounds good to me, because I know it's hard for people to leave their
Yeah.
jobs.
It was very hard last year to get a quorum to do it, and then you end up sitting here for 2 hours and you can't even pull out a deck of cards, so. Right, Kaylee? So what do you guys think? Do you wanna approve the changes? As Vicky's requesting? Someone ready to make a
Or
motion?
the alternates?
Well, we can, we select them from the board. We can select, I don't care if we draw names out of a hat or people who are just available and wanna do it. We just need 2 members. To be the regular board review members and then 2 alternates in case someone gets sick or gets called out for work or whatever.
Make a motion to approve ordinance V 2406, amending village code chapter 2, article 2-IV, division 2, IV-4, section 2, 141, board of review by reducing the membership from all trustees to 2 trustees, adding appointment criteria, amending the training requirement, updating a state statute reference.
There's a second. Second by Darlene. Any discussion? Vote your ballot.
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, now we have to set some dates for the open book and board review. So, the initial board review meeting will be held on May 28th at 6 p.m. We're gonna do that just begin prior to the regular village board meeting. And it's going to be, open, and do we need a date to adjourn it to? I thought we didn't have to have a date to adjourn. Usually.
If we know it for a fact. So if we do know it by May 28th, then we will adjourn it to, right now it's tentatively set for August 7th, I believe it was July 18th for open book and August 7th. If that's a Wednesday.
Okay, so do we need to set the date for the July 16th?
July 18th is open book. That is not set by the board, that's set by the assessor.
Okay,
So it's,
okay, so May 28th before our regular scheduled meeting to adjourn the board review till
what date, I don't know at this moment, until we know for a fact when Kyle will have the assessment program.
Would you, my only comment is I do think that open book and board review should be in the evening so that anybody can come down here if they want to, and that in the daytime is not hinder our residents from being able to look or challenge their assessments.
I don't get to pick that.
But I think isn't that up to the board, but I don't think it's even requested, the contracts. We have a contract with them, we're paying them, it's not their way around, so I think we should be able, as a board. Give them that direction and say we are expecting them to come and do it in the evening. I'm only one board member, but that's just the way I'm saying on this, because I.
So I was told it had to be during the day, so I don't.
Well, that's only because our contractor wants to come during the day, but that's not right to our constituents for ultimately paying the bill for said contract.
actually, I've never heard of a board review being at night.
I've gotten complaints from people not being able to come down here, so.
Well.
The open book is now available online, which is nice. That started last year.
Maybe there's just some education that needs to take place.
So isn't the process where someone gets an assessment, and they say, I don't think that's right. They come down and they make an appointment with the assessor to work out the difference, and then if it gets worked out, it gets worked out. It's only when that disagreement is still there that's when it comes to the board of review.
Correct. Correct. And at that time, they have to bring, some kind of evidence. They can bring an attorney or a counsel with them.
So by
So,
state law, you just need a proof that the state Department of Revenue states by their law that the assessed value has to be within plus or minus 10% of fair market value, which is a mortgage appraisal or a real estate listing or comp.
right.
So if they bring those two things, they make an appointment with the assessor, that should be enough, and assessors are not gonna meet people at night, right?
So here again, we're just looking to set the board review meeting to adjourn to a future date. And that is at 6 o'clock at night. So. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make an motion to approve the initial Board of Review meeting to call the meeting to order and adjourn be held on May 28th, 2024 at 6 p.m. with the village board meeting immediately following.
Second by Darlene. Any further discussion? Coach Ballard.
I vote aye.
Lost somebody. There we go. Let the record show the motion's carried unanimously. All right. Future agenda items have not changed. And I need a motion to go into closed session.
Before Madam President, we go into closed session, I wanted to say that I want to bring to a vote that we do not allow Zoom in on closed session. Per state statute, it is not something that we have to do, but it is not something I think is proper because of the fact that it is closed session, that electronic devices, especially Zoom calls, can be recorded. So I'm gonna make a motion to have closed session for this session to be in person only.
I'll second it.
For tonight.
Yep.
Okay, I have a real problem with that.
There's a motion on the table. Let's go ahead and vote.
But hold on, before you vote on that, we can go back to this in a second, but just point of order on agenda items. And skip future agenda items, and I did have a future agenda item, then we can go back to the discussion.
Well, and the other thing is a point of order. There is nothing on this agenda changing our Zoom policy and procedure. So that's a violation of the open meeting law because it's not under.
Point of order on the agenda. We can all debate this and we can talk with the attorney as well.
All right,
Point of order, we
Okay.
skip the agenda.
Okay.
item first.
back to future agenda items. Okay,
Point of order here, I'm sorry.
what did you have?
Thank you, Madam President. So for May or end of May or end of June meeting, staff discretion. I want to see bringing these interceptors for lift station 4 and 6 into our sewer connection fees.
You have to have the entire project designed first.
They already have the estimate. She has all the estimates. Well, again, I'm just asking for, we can discuss it. It's already in that stuff. She has the numbers and what we were presented tonight, so.
But you actually have to have the engineering.
No, you don't.
My understanding, it can't just be a ballpark number.
Sure.
My understanding is it has to be an actual project.
Well, we didn't have part of our discussion on what we have to do to move it forward.
Well, then we make a discussion. But it goes back again that we're gonna get on the wrong side of those
Not if we do it right.
fees.
Not if-
Well, and that's why I'm cautioning, because on my understanding is that you have to have an actual project shovel ready.
I just asked the question tonight and then I got the answer. Yes, as long as we plan to do the project and she's got those estimates and manager Heiser confirmed as well.
I think it's true. I think you can have engineering estimates and the plan to do the project. I don't think the project has to be designed.
No, we'll see. Okay,
Fine,
anyway,
Mayor.
we'll talk about that.
Mayor June, I want to discuss how we move this forward because we can run some interval, we'll discuss it later. And then I have a second agenda item. And that is for the end of May meeting or June as well. Staff discretion based on things and timing to get some information together is with all this utility construction that's been going on in Harrison. We need to get our arms around these companies because they're destroying stuff all over the place and they're not restoring things.
You're talking about TDS?
Well, it's multiple, it's all three of them.
Sorry, TDS,
CDS Spectrum and AT&T are all causing,
Yeah.
destroying stuff.
yeah,
And there's gotta be some options because the city of Concana kicked TDS out of their community for a while and only let them in under some new conditions that they agreed to do proper restoration. So I wanna have us have some discussion and figure out how we can solve it.
all right, now. Before Scott, trustee Hanchke makes his motion, there is nothing on this agenda changing our policy for Zoom calls. Nothing on the agenda, so, Andy,
So,
I'm asking the attorney,
talk to attorney.
well, I'm talking to our attorney who's sitting there right now that we're paying big bucks to sit here.
Why?
It's not on the agenda.
It's on the agenda to,
Change our Zoom policy and exclude Julene from our closed session. And that's never been part of our
that would
policy.
allow you to close to prevent her. In closed session.
Say that again?
I don't know of any reason why you're not be allowed to attend in the session here.
So Scott's motion would be illegal.
No, that's not true. We've already talked to the legal municipalities, and because of that closed session is closed, you cannot record, because recording it would be a state felony. And the risk of overhearing sensitive policies to a closed session would result in felony violations of the state statute. It is the right of the board to set policy for a closed session if it is considered sensitive and would be at risk of other people outside of the closed session room from being able to hear or be able to record such information.
But our policy currently does not exclude people from on a Zoom call from closed session.
But I
And,
just stated-
and
stated this.
it's not.
Well, I already made the
posted
motion
on
in a second,
agenda.
and we're gonna make motion,
I'm asking for clarification from our attorney who's sitting right there.
and he doesn't have an opinion, we already.
No.
discussed the legal.
Say, no, he did not. This is our attorney that we are paying for. So,
Can you look up,
And-
Andy, hold on, 'cause I got the Wisconsin, I'm helping you out. Look up something here, I got the Wisconsin Open Meetings Law Compliance Guide right here, I bring it along, because it's stuff gets thrown around all the time. What does and there's a reference here about who can attend. Wisconsin statute 19.89. What does, and I don't know either way, you just happen to have this with me tonight, so. But I carry it all the time because it's always throwing stuff out at us, so. And there's a reference here of who can attend open and closed sessions, and it's got a reference here to Wisconsin statute 19.89.
Nineteen point eight nine, exclusion of members, no duly elected or appointed member of a governmental body may be excluded from any meeting of such body. Unless the rules of the governmental body provide to the contrary, no member of the body may be excluded from any meeting of a subunit of that governmental body. So,
period.
no, you cannot exclude her.
So you cannot exclude.
She may not be able, she may not be able to record the session, but there's nothing in the statute that I see that would prevent.
It's different than what they do in Calumet County, they
Well-
made it very specific that you can have
So
to
do
be
we-
in person.
Well, we need a rule in our board with that, because I think that's what that's saying, right? We would need a rule. You would need a rule that's that. And that should be a future agenda item.
That can be a future agenda item if you want to, but right now, any attempt to exclude Julene would be a violation of the open meeting law. All right, so
I don't think it's anything, I mean, just for the record here, the question, I guess I can't speak for you guys, but I think the more the question, I don't think it's anything against.
Well, it's
Well,
just
I would
the
hope not anyway,
risk of.
but it's just, we're gonna be talking about some sensitive things tonight with various items that are posted here, and so. I mean,
well, Julene's in Florida and I don't think her husband's, he's probably sound asleep listening to this.
My
So-
husband and grandchildren are not in this room. They have not been all night. The kids are asleep. I don't know where my husband is. There's no one here. And if you're questioning my integrity, then I'm going to do something stupid like tape or record this information, I'm not.
All right,
I can stop recording.
yeah. and we're going.
Confused to do the.
No, well, no, we've had the decision.
What you
I
got?
need a motion to go into closed
I'd
session.
like to know just for the future thing here, what did you guys use today?
So, just for reference, so I'm Henry Glad, I work here, I used to be the city manager on Platteville, so what we would do is we would have two separate Zoom meetings, we would have the regular meeting, and then if there was somebody that was attending closed session, we would close out of this, we would have this open. And then we would go into that meeting, and then come back if there was anything that we jump in closed session, so we had two separate meetings, and I'm gonna specifically for the whole session that only board members can go to.
We're going into closed session right now. You guys are all gonna leave and we're going to closed session. The only people who are gonna stay are the attorney, the board, and then you guys all leave.
Go Baird's gonna stay.
Baird's gonna stay.
Well, Barrett can stay for this.
It's got some, the concern is, it isn't
So
integrity, it's the fact that first they said your closed session is closed, it isn't, you know, it's meant to be in person.
we need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Motion by Darlene. Need a second. Julie, you wanna make the second?
Sorry, not to be, don't we need specific to go into closed session for the item? Oh, I thought we had to read off the item or something, wasn't there?
I don't know. I can read off the items.
Or don't we have, I mean, Andy, what do we, this, we got all flustered tonight. I thought we had to like read the items off, but that, but we truly.
Well, then we need everybody to leave before I can read off the items.
Well, the items are in the agenda.
Fine, item one, for the purpose to purchase land for development. Second one is for Lake Park development, and the third is for. Let's see, village manager. So is there a motion to go into closed session? Motion by Darlene, is there a second?
Second,
Hey, you don't wanna go into close, second by Julie, vote your ballot.
Aye.
Call vote, okay, Jolene says aye. Aye. Aye,
Nay.
Fine.
all right, motion is carried, we're in closed session.
Well, let me pause.